Well, welcome, Jake. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
So we met in the Jubilee debate thing, and essentially it was one man versus the manosphere, and you and I were part of the manosphere. And I thought we were going to be going against like some radical feminist libtard psycho.
I kind of expected that too. Or I thought it might have been like a sociology PhD or somebody who's going to be like, according to this study, actually.
Right. These are the facts. Yeah, exactly. Somebody like that. But it actually turned out, I mean, I don't think we're at liberty to say who it is yet, but it turned out to be like a really cool guy. I look up to, like, he's a great writer.
I didn't know him beforehand, but I know a lot of, like you did, and a lot of other people like had known who he was.
Yeah.
And I thought he was cool. I liked talking with him.
Yeah, he was really cool. Did you ever see his book? I probably shouldn't say his book.
Right.
It's still the episode isn't out yet.
If we just decide to release this after that comes out, then we can just talk about it.
Right, then we could potentially...
So maybe we should just like...
Who knows when it's going to come out, though? It could be like they have like a couple other ones in the hopper that they still haven't done.
When I did the Isaiah Martin debate, that came out like 2.5 months after we shot it.
Yeah. So
like they just took forever.
Who knows? But afterwards, I saw, we followed each other on Instagram. And then you came up to me and you were like, hey, we agree on pretty much all social issues, but I saw your bio says wealth redistribution without the virtue signaling. And I just wanted to let you know that I don't believe in any wealth redistribution whatsoever.
Oh, really?
That's what you, and I was like,
oh yeah, I don't believe in it. Yeah.
Right. That's what you said to me. And I was like, oh, wow, we got to talk about this. Yeah. Cause I'm like, that's a kind of a cornerstone of my political philosophy. I'm big into.
I'm an Austrian. I believe in intensely in free markets and in letting people, collect the fruits of their own labors.
Yeah, I mean, I think Austrian economics is super interesting because I think that when a lot of people hear it, they assume that it just means a defender of the status quo. They assume that it just kind of means free markets, small government, laissez-faire. But if that was the case, Ronald Reagan would be an Austrian folk hero. No. And I assume
Ronald Reagan's a statist tyrant.
Right, yes. I imagine you have some choice words for Ronald Reagan's deficit spending and increased military budgets and Federal Reserve policies.
I'm not a fan of his SCOTUS nominees. I'm not a fan of his amnesty. I think Reagan might have been one of, if not the best presidents recently, and yet still awful.
Yeah, from your prism, definitely better than a lot of the others, but still... Yeah.
I think HW might have been a little bit underrated. I'm not a pro HW guy, but I don't think HW gets the credit for, like, the Soviet Union fell, and that could have gone really badly.
Really bad, yeah.
And it kind of didn't. He's a CIA guy, and read my lips, no new taxes, and then did new tax. Like I got my beefs with HW, as I've got a lot of beef with the Sun.
Yeah, a lot of beef with the Sun for sure.
But I think HW is actually underrated on the right.
Was pretty underrated. So when I hear Austrian economics, I think that I first kind of start with like that like signature, like Karl Menger's idea of like subjective value, like nothing has intrinsic worth.
Yeah.
Things are only worth what somebody's willing to pay for it, right?
So I almost can't imagine how it could be any other way.
Right. Yeah. So I think that's kind of like the cornerstone of where you guys
subjective
start.
Theory of value.
Which makes perfect sense, right? A bottle of water in the desert is worth infinite amount of money, and in a grocery store it's worth $1.
Yeah.
So that makes total sense.
What's my grandfather's mug worth to me? It's not worth nothing to you.
Right.
But it's worth a lot to me.
It's worth everything to you. Yeah, exactly. Potentially. So I think that makes a ton of sense. And then obviously, like, you have like the Hayek's knowledge problem, which I think also makes a lot of sense. And then the idea of spontaneous order. So like the notion that like economies are simply require too much information and are too complex for any person to potentially understand on their own. Yeah. So this idea of having just like, one person or one body kind of arbitrate the economy makes no sense.
Central planning never works. There are 0 examples of successful central planning.
Totally agree with you there. And then a common counter argument is, well, then what's going to happen? Things are just going to spontaneously combust, and there's going to be chaos if there's no sort of central unification.
We've been hearing about late stage capitalism for 200 years.
Right.
Like, it doesn't happen.
And it's never kind of imploded. But in fact, the opposite is true, which is that, or sort of the inverse happens, which is that, Austrian economic theory often comes in to clean up the messes of statism and communism,
Well, I extremely oppose cronyism. I'm very against all these state contracts, particularly the modern versions, which combine the wokeism with the cronyism. I think that's disgusting. But no, I think the Austrian system is actually is almost by definition the fair system because there's no force.
Yeah.
It's the aggression principle that if you own yourself, then I can't compel you to do anything, and that's the only fair system.
Exactly. So when you describe yourself as an Austrian, obviously there's a couple of different branches, right? There's kind of like that like Rothbard style anarcho-communism, and then there's or anarcho-capitalism rather. But then there's kind of, some people who believe in like a limited version of the state, kind of like a Hayek. Where do you fall on the spectrum?
Yeah, I'm definitely more on the Nozick, on the minarchism, bit Watchman state.
Yep.
On economic issues. On social issues, I'm actually not a libertarian. And so a lot of the Austrian guys, they kind of expand their economic issues to everything. I'm not in favor of legalized weed. I'm sympathetic to the pro-choice position, but personally I am pro-life. I don't extrapolate my Austrian economics to a broad world. Like I'm not on some like, Murray Rothbard ethics of liberty thing,
right?
Where he is trying to justify like a sale of children and all this idea. Or I mean, it's a great book.
I'm happy that you're saying that because I wasn't sure where you were going to go, and I was like, we were going to have to interrogate.
We could do it. We could debate it out. And I'll be honest. I have a huge amount of sympathy for the radical libertarian ideas, and a lot of my favorite politicians are on the libertarian wing. I personally gave money to Thomas Massey's re-election campaign for the primary.
Yeah, I imagine he's like a big hero of yours.
He is. On Epstein, he opposed the Iran war. He fought Big Beautiful Bill. Like all the things. I wanted to like Trump so much. I voted for him. I thought he was so cool.
He betrayed
Trump
you.
Trump won was awesome. I didn't leave Trump. He left me. And I feel like Massey is at the America First branch. And I think some people like Rand Paul are a little weak on immigration.
Yeah.
I'm not a libertarian.
How do you feel about Ron Paul?
I love Ron Paul.
Right, he's got to be another hero.
One of my heroes. Yeah, no, he's great. I have some disagreements with him, but I am more. I think a lot of libertarians, they tend to be like almost reactionary against the neocons. Like I supported the 12-day war, and I also supported getting Maduro. I think those were reasonable things to do. I'm very opposed to the Iran war, though, and so I think that there's. I think a lot of these libertarians, they see, what happened in Iraq and everything. I think the first Gulf War under HW again, that kind of worked. We went in, fucked them up and left.
Strikes.
Like these targeted strikes, they're actually pretty. We killed Soleimani, that worked really well. We killed Baghdadi.
Yep.
A lot of the stuff under Trump 1 was excellent. And so I think a lot of these libertarians, they're too pro things like marijuana and other issues that are really socially destructive. They're too anti-war. And like sort of like the Scott Horton antiwar.com type people.
Yep.
I have a lot of respect for him. I've read a lot of Scott Horton's books. I think he's a genius. I still think he's right.
Right. Right. I mean, he would have been totally outraged by something like the 12-day war, or even the the capturing of Maduro. Yeah, exactly. I mean, with the 12-day war, I mean, the capturing of Maduro, I think there's a stronger argument for it. I did kind of see the 12-day war as a pretext for what was going to happen. Just kind of like drumming up the propaganda about this imminent threat of a nuclear weapon and things like that I think was going to escalate into a wider regional conflict. Unfortunately, I was right. I'm very unhappy about that. But as an isolated incident, I think it was less problematic. But then just now, in hindsight, looking at it kind of as a pretext to what's happening now, totally opposed to all of it. I think that you and I have a lot of places of agreement.
I think probably most things.
Yeah, most things. For
That's why we're here.
Exactly. And I think that one major place of
redistribution
is right. That's going to be a major point of disagreement. But I think when you were talking about the crony capitalism, you and I are both deeply opposed to it and see it probably through a very similar lens.
Yeah.
So like when we look at the form of capitalism that we have now, I would argue that it's really not free market, free enterprise the way that we would want it to function, in that it is rugged individualism for the bottom 90% and communism really for the top 10 or the top 1% would kind of be the way that I would form that argument.
I think that's maybe not right.
Tell me.
I don't think we have rugged individualism for the bottom 90%. I think we have an immense amount of state programs. I mean, it's 12% of people are on state-funded housing, and the people who are on EBT, especially regionally. You find regions where 50% of a particular area are all on EBT. I don't think we have anything close to rugged individualism. I think it's actually. I mean, that's what Mondami campaigned on, was advocating against the rugged individualism. We're gonna have the warm helpness of collectivism. I don't think individualism is rugged. I think that's an incorrect framing of what individualism is.
Yep.
I think some people like Ayn Rand contribute to that. But there's no kids in her books. She doesn't have she really is focused on the individual, and I'm not. I'm focused on the family unit.
That's interesting.
But I still believe in a laissez-faire system for the family. And then the idea that we have a statism or a communism, we definitely have a statism for the elite. But I don't think it's anything close to a communism. I think it's much closer to something like a crony fascism. And I also don't think it's quite like for the top 10 or even 1% by income or by wealth. I think it's much more that way by top 1% by closeness to the state. Like, I think there are a lot of people who are very wealthy, who are not actually that close to the state. Even someone as weirdly as like Elon Musk has a huge amount of conflict with the state. I mean, he was at war with the Biden administration for a very long time. I don't think he was the beneficiary during that era of a heavy amount of cronyism. But I think earlier under Trump 1, under Barack Obama, a lot of the Tesla, SpaceX stuff was the beneficiary of cronyism. And so I think he's a great case example of how you can be wealthy and a beneficiary of cronyism, or be wealthy and not. Or take like the teachers unions. Teachers are not extremely wealthy people, but they are part of the administrative state and they are huge beneficiaries of cronyism. And so I disagree on the framing on both ends. One, I don't think rugged individualism is what the majority of Americans live under. I think we live under an extremely cushy state.
That's interesting.
And then I also, on the other end, I don't think that the framing of the top 10% by income or by wealth is the right framing, or that it's a communist idea. I think it's essentially a unitary fascist idea for the top 1 to 10% most tied to the state.
When I think about cronyism, there are specific things within the tax code that I'm sort of looking at, right? Tax preferences for capital over work, for example, right? The fact that capital gains taxes are lower than taxes on labor. I think that we should dispel this myth that for some reason money made through unrealized gains or money made through investments is somehow or in some way worth more than money made through sweat.
Well, an unrealized gain isn't money made at all. It's unrealized. That's
right. Or even, but when you sell the unrealized gain,
you realize the gain.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that is sort of an example of a policy that favors the ownership class. Because who owns stuff? Obviously, the wealthy. Who has investments? The wealthy. Who works for their money? The laborers. The bottom 90% of the country.
A little over half of Americans are invested in the markets. I mean,
yeah, but if you look at, let's say, we often talk about markets at record highs, for example. But if you actually look at the numbers around, well, who has actually benefited from these highs? It's something like 70% of stock market gains have gone to the top 10% of the country, or maybe even lower than that.
Whereas who that top 10% is fluctuates tremendously. Like, we have one of the highest mobilities of almost any Western nation.
Yeah, but it's still like, people who are, and I think that kind of what we're circling here is this thing of the vibe economy versus the economy, the way people feel versus the way versus the metrics that traditional economists actually look at. So I guess the fundamental point that I make around when I talk about crony capitalism is the notion of a tax code that favors, let's say, asset holders and the ownership class. Even take something like buy, borrow, die.
Well, poor people pay no taxes. Like, it's like half of Americans pay no net taxes. Like, the idea that the tax system is favored against the poor is just not right. We have the most progressive tax rate of any Western nation.
Okay, but
European nations, the top rate kicks in at like $75,000-$75,000.
But I think that, taking that example, right, there are I think a quarter of corporations that make over $500 million have a $0 federal income tax liability.
A corporate tax rate is just a double tax. The corporate tax rate should be zero. So you should only have individuals paying taxes. And to be clear, I actually agree with you that the fact that we have a different rate for capital gains and income is weird. I also think the fact that we have a progressive system on either thing is weird at all. Or with the fact that we have long-term versus short-term, I think that's all ridiculous. I think we should just have a flat rate. I think we should until we pay off the debt, we should hit the Laffer curve maximizing rate flat. And then once we've paid off, at least balance the budget and probably even paid down most of our debt, we need to then reduce down towards as low as we possibly can.
So I do want to interrogate that a little bit more, but before we do, I wanted just to move quickly to one other point of agreement that I think that we have, which is around inflation. So I think that people often look at inflation as just things getting more expensive. But I think the way that you look at it would be something along the lines of money being kind of printed into the system, which inevitably causes prices to go up. And I think it's an idea in economics known as, I think it's the Cotillion effect or something like that, which is this idea that when money is printed into the system, it's not evenly distributed. It's distributed first and foremost to the politically well-connected, to defense contractors.
Which is not distributed by wealth, it's by connection to the state.
Right. Yes, it's exactly. It's distributed by connection.
Which is why all the wealthiest districts are the ones around DC, all this Arlington, Virginia stuff. These are not producers, these are takers.
Right, exactly. Yes, I would totally agree with that. And I think that,
the richest are the takers. That's not a good system.
No, I would totally agree with that. I would totally agree that you should be sort of benefiting essentially from the fruits of your labor. But I would say that I guess where you and I have a fundamental disagreement is I think that the biggest beneficiaries of our crony capitalist system are the billionaires and the mega corporations, not the guy on, taking advantage of welfare or somebody using SNAP benefits. So I think that when we look at...
Well, SNAP isn't cronyism. That's just a different problem.
Right. Yeah.
So
yeah.
like it's a category error to say like a SNAP beneficiary is benefiting from cronyism. No, the person who's benefiting from cronyism in that case is like Coca-Cola is benefiting from the cronyism of using SNAP benefits to encourage already fat, already destabilized, already unhappy poor people to go buy more cookies, to go buy more Coke, to go buy all these things. Like when you incentivize these programs, the cronyism, the beneficiary there, like you have to separate out. The redistribution is a problem for some reasons, and we can get into that if we want to.
Yeah.
The cronyism in the redistribution is the fact that Walmart and Coca-Cola and, all these various cookie companies, all this stuff, these like slop destruction of our society companies are benefiting from the state money, which isn't going to the poor because it's bad for those people. It's going back to the company.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I would agree with that. I think that another way that you look at it is that, a large percentage of Amazon employees are on welfare programs,
which is a subsidy of Amazon.
Right. So we're subsidizing Amazon not paying their workers a fair wage through...
Well, fair is subjective.
Well, a wage that would allow them to afford food. Right.
You're driving the market clearing rate down by de-incentivizing people from negotiating for higher wages by allowing them to survive on lower wages by subsidizing it. Like that's definitely the case.
Yeah. So, okay. So I think that we have a point of agreement there. I think that when we look at the Fed, right, I think that we would kind of look at something like this similarly, where I would say that a lot of sort of the bust periods in American history were reactions to artificial booms and to artificially cheap credit. And so I also have a lot of skepticism around the Fed, as I'm sure that you do. I think it's kind of a strange conflict of interest that they're responsible for managing inflation, but they're also responsible for total money supply. So I would be curious to hear your thoughts just on the Federal Reserve in general.
Yeah, if I was like, I feel like there's two different worlds. There's the world where like I am emperor and I get to do all the things I'm going to do now.
Right.
And then there's the world where I'm like pragmatic in American politics and I'm picking my battles. If I am emperor, we got free banking. Like I am going back to like an 1870s structure. I am getting rid of the Fed and I am resetting like everything. But we're never doing that. Like that is never happening. And so I am not going. I'm not that concerned with the Fed. My more pragmatic issue with the Fed is the politicization of the Fed. I think what Donald Trump tried to do with pressuring Powell about all these things and about the sort of show me the man, show me the crime, where he's trying to pressure him about the building and like whether or not Powell said something slightly incorrect about the financing of this building. I think that is a much bigger problem linked to the Fed that is almost so bad. It makes me wonder, like the disgustingness of this administration has just really pissed me off. And so, but on the inflation idea, it's important to differentiate between prices and inflation. And I think the CPI actually is a really bad way of measuring inflation because inflation always and forever is always a monetary issue. It's literally just like the value of items versus money. Whereas an individual item can go up or down because of supply and demand curves. And so you like, for example, you have COVID and you shut everything down. And so you dismantle all the supply lines. That's actually not inflation. That's just a destruction of supply. Now, at the same time, you can then inject a huge amount of money into it, which is inflation. And when you have a reduction of supply lines with an increase of the money supply, that's where you get stagflation, which is the 70s problem, which is what we have
and what
now,
your guys are great at tackling, by the way. I would argue, whereas like a Keynesianism or something like that, like an FDR, Great Society, has no good response to something like stagflation.
Everyone should read Rothbard's take on the Great Depression. If you ever want to think that the FDR guys handled the Great Depression, no. And Hoover didn't either. It's not like a Democrat-Republican problem. It's a state problem. And Rothbard's got some weird social takes.
He does.
But you want your economics right, Rothbard will get you. Like he's the guy.
So another place that I think that we agree is that, I think that we would definitely agree here, is that the state is culpable in generating inequality. So I would look at that and I would say something like, for example, a lot of the problems that we have with housing, for example, are a result of NIMBYism. They're a result of zoning restrictions. They're a result of superfluous permits and things like that. So that this idea that the government's going to come in and save the day and it's going to ameliorate inequality is totally bogus, because the government has a major culpability in propagating a lot of the inequality and issues that we see today. And often when you deregulate, that's when you could start to see things even out a little bit more. There's this idea, a very interesting idea from organizational psychology called subtraction bias. And essentially,
heard of this.
You have heard of this?
I have not. No, tell me.
So it's very interesting. So essentially, it's just the idea that human beings have a bias when they have a problem to want to add something to fix it.
Losing is more bad than gaining. Is that the idea?
No, it's actually the opposite. So it's that humans have a bias to, when they are presented with a problem, to wanting to add a layer of bureaucracy or add something to solve the problem. But in many ways, we forget that perhaps this problem could be best fixed by taking something away. So it's a bias towards always wanting to add a solution opposed to take away something that already exists. And I feel like your guys kind of have that. That don't have that problem. They don't have that organizational issue.
When you have a problem, the first question is, how did the state do this?
Right. What can we remove to solve so this can self-correct on its own?
But there's a big thing that I think a lot of people misunderstand, which is things like inequality or poverty are not a product of the state. They're a product of nature. They're just totally entropy. I think a lot of people, they ask, oh, well, how come some people are rich? What's going on? Why did this happen? No, that's the wrong question.
I completely agree with that.
The question is, how did anyone ever not be poor? Because that's the default. And you have to always default against nature, and you have to see the default status. It's not why are some poor and some rich. It's how did anyone ever not starve?
Yeah, I mean, you could ameliorate all inequality with an unbelievable amount of tyranny.
You could kill everybody. Everyone's equally dead.
Right, exactly. But I mean, in life, right? I mean, we see this all the time, right? A small percentage of stars,
it's Pareto.
Yes, have the majority of mass, right? The most beautiful animals are kind of sequestered in a very small portion of the world. We're not all equally smart. We're not all equally beautiful. It is kind of a natural law of the universe, right? You know, it's just true. But I guess that, you know, so I think that you and I are totally in agreement there. We're also totally in agreement on Trump, by the way. I mean, I would love to hear some of your thoughts on the big, beautiful bill. I'm assuming, yes, just take it away. Go.
Yeah, no, I mean, I voted for Trump for three things. And I thought that he was decent on two of them and bad on one in the first term. But I voted for him to drain the swamp. I voted for him to balance the budget and or lower taxes.
He bombed on that first and second term.
Yeah. I think he actually did decent on the swamp in the first term. And in fact, he was trying.
Yeah.
And he didn't succeed as much, but at least he was trying. He's not trying this time.
No, he's totally
He just is the swamp. Yeah. But I mean, he had no major new wars in the first term. He was the only administration that didn't have the Putin administration expand their territorial gains underneath him. He did a pretty good job of fighting back against the neocons and the warmonger and the sort of the swampy Arlington idea. Second term, he just is that. He just is the swamp. He's worse than Bush. This war is worse than Iraq. He is worse than Bush. This big beautiful bill on the spending, everything. I mean, we got the 2017 tax cuts continued, and that's huge. Those are that. It's the only major Republican legislation success we've had in the last 2 decades is the 2017 tax cuts, and the fact that they didn't lapse, the fact that they were able to get those to continue. That's huge, and I have to give him that. But he didn't try for the Doge cuts. He didn't try to slash anything. The Big Beautiful Bill, and the worst part about Big Beautiful Bill too is not only that he pushed for something bad, but then he had this loyalty test where like everyone from like Chip Roy to who I think eventually did cave on it, but people like Thomas Massey who held out, trying to primary these guys now. Yeah, that's so unreasonable. It is. And then my third thing I voted for him was immigration.
Did well there. I mean,
he closed the border.
Yeah, closed the border, and then.
But here's the crazy thing that I didn't realize: he closed the border without an act of Congress.
Amazing.
Wait, but that means you can close the border without an act of Congress. So what the fuck was going on in Trump 1?
Oh, yeah, that's true. And also what's going on, under Biden.
Well, yeah, but that was the thing is Biden like deliberately reopened it.
Yeah,
and made it more open. I mean, we had like 10 million crossings under Biden or something.
Yeah,
just
that's right.
Complete restructuring of
and he appointed Kamala as the border czar as if it was just a really deeply complex problem.
Yeah.
When obviously it wasn't. But I also agree with you. What happened under Trump 1 that we had to build the wall and people were still coming? They were open. They were going over the wall. Yeah. And then all of a sudden Trump 2,
it's closed.
It's closed.
Because he wanted to run on the issue. He wanted to run on it. He didn't want to solve it. He wanted to run on it.
It's unbelievable, isn't it? Like it's shocking that it was that. And then what was going on with Biden? I mean, dude, Biden, you're going to lose.
Biden's just dead. Like Biden was not a person. Biden's administration was just hijacked by the radical left. All the appointees around him, ranging from Merrick Garland to Kamala Harris, like these people were. I mean, you look at Biden even in Biden during Obama administration. This was not the same guy who was running the country, because the guy running the country was dead. They just had a bunch of cronies surrounding him.
Yeah, I mean, the immigration thing is crazy. I mean, tell me about some of your thoughts. Right, I think that we're probably similar on Trump tariffs. So
yeah, I don't like them. Tariffs are taxes. Taxes are bad. Yeah,
right. Exactly. And also, they are, they are inflationary. They increase pricing.
They're not inflationary. They do increase pricing.
So I guess tell me a little bit more about what you mean on the distinction.
Yeah, inflation is always a monetary principle, and people often confuse the idea of price rising and inflation. Those aren't the same thing. Inflation is about the value of the dollar compared to goods broadly. Mm-hmm. Rising prices is just a supply and demand issue, and it's a supply and demand of both the good and of the dollar. It's of the exchange.
Yeah.
But like, if I go back to the subjective theory of value, if I decide that I'm going to blow up all the fresh water treatment plants, the price of water is going to go up. That's not inflationary. I didn't change the value of the dollar. I just changed the value of the good by removing the supply of it. And so if I tariff something, I've just added an artificial wedge into the pricing of importing the good. I haven't actually changed there's some impact on the supply of M2, like there's sort of, because everything is connected, but it's not a directly modifying the M2 supply.
Okay, I see. It's an interesting distinction.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that I mean, would you say that, when inflation rises, you also see prices go up?
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
For sure. Which is why people combine them, because when inflation rises, if the value of money goes down, the price of something will go up. Mm-hmm. But that's a holistic approach, proportionate, because it's literally just the dollar crashing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So just to summarize, I think what you said, just to make sure that we're on the same page, and I think that we've kind of hit on all of our major points of agreement. And it sounds like your fundamental belief is that you are entitled to what you earn in a voluntary exchange, nothing more and nothing less. We should have a flat tax because that's what is fair. And you said that we should hit kind of the highest point of the ladder curve until we pay off our debt, and then reduce it from there.
This one is the last sentence is probably where I currently sit, but I'm less confident in the last sentence, because the debt itself actually isn't the problem, so long as you can get higher returns on the not having the debt issue. And so like I'm take like a weird example, like if you offered me $1 billion loan at 1% interest, I would take that right now.
Right.
And I would never I would pay off my interest.
Yeah.
But I'm never going to pay down the principal on that debt.
No.
And so long as the interest rate, if you can get a better return not doing that, but that works as an individual actor. As a state, the problem is just in democracy, people are really bad at measuring these things. And we also increasingly have got more and more selfish against our own children, starting with the boomers. And so we're borrowing against the future. And so you don't have this infinite time theory that allows for spending now to equal spending then. Mm-hmm. And so I haven't worked that in my head whether or not we have to pay down the debt or not. We definitely have to balance the budget.
You don't need to pay down the debt to zero.
Yeah.
Right. But I think that there also becomes a point where, obviously it becomes unsustainable, right? Because the more that you print more and more and more money, because essentially what happens is people don't realize that when the debt goes up, you have to print more money. People just think that you're putting it on the credit card. But of course, that's not how it works, because the Fed can even get people to buy the debt, like China or Japan or something like that, or the Fed has to themselves buy
a huge portion of our debt, like the majority is locally owned. It's right. The idea of like China owning our debt, we own a shit ton of Chinese debt too. We could just trade the debts if we wanted to.
Yeah.
Like a little bit of that is overblown. It's not a international
But to buy the
problem.
debt, you have to print the money, right? And then that is what leads to inflation, and then that is what leads to, and then obviously, you get pressure to lower the interest rates, and then that's when you get something like a 2008. And then just to go back to the cronyism point, all bailouts, totally bad. I think that we would agree. Like, for example, Spirit Airlines should not be bailed out. burn baby burn. That is cronyism and autocracy 101, and it's also a correction of a capitalism. So the whole argument.
One of the problems with bailouts is if you just remove the bailouts, you actually get a bigger problem because these companies are so linked to the state, and the state owns like half of my revenue. And so the issue is that you really do have a problem where we've entered not a communist system where we're redistributing, but a fascist system where the state is controlling and running the business. I mean, the federal government, just federal, not even including state, spends $7 trillion a year. We have a GDP of 28. A quarter of the economy is literally just federal spending. And it doesn't include the mass amount of like tiny dial changes that they're putting on through like ESG and all this stuff. And so if you remove only the bailouts, you now have a problem where the state, like take like the 2008 crash and stuff, like the state is deliberately incentivizing bad housing loans with the promise of a bailout. And then if you don't do the bailout, now the people who get screwed are not the bankers, they're gonna be rich anyway. It's the people who were invested in the bank that went on the bank run and disappeared. And so you have this serious problem of if you have to clean the system. You can't just peel off the bailouts, because the bailouts are the most obvious problem of it. But the bailouts are actually a necessary Band-Aid for a problem caused much earlier than the bailouts. The state always requires more state to protect itself. But if you just peel off certain issues, you'll just get collapse.
So what would you have done, let's say 2008, right? Where we had TARP and we had the big bailouts. I mean, if you ask me, I would look at, I think Sweden did this in the 90s where you had a temporary nationalization of the banks. I assume that makes your skin crawl.
Yeah.
But it worked in that particular example.
When you get to 2008, it's like the question of, you know, what do you do when they they show up with the guns at your house already?
Right.
And you're like we have made so many errors by the time you like I'd rather you ask me, what do you do at it's 2000, you know, it's 1912. Yeah. And you're like, are we going to pass the income tax or not? Are we going to start the war state and go to World War I? Are we going to build out the Fed? Are we going to create this unitary state? I mean, I go to Princeton, fucking Woodrow Wilson built all his ideas out of Princeton and then became president.
Right.
Like,
I'm sure you're not a Wilson fan.
Not a Wilson fan.
I happen to be a big Wilson fan.
You are a Wilson fan.
I'm a big Wilson fan. Yeah. I mean, I think that Wilson's expansion of the GI Bill is responsible, along with Eisenhower's what was that 1956 act, the Interstate Highway Act, where he kind of created the modern conceptualization of suburbia. I mean, I would say that they built.
And you like suburbia? They
built the middle class. I mean, I personally, no, I would never live in a suburb. But as the idea of like the quintessential American dream.
So not for you, but everyone else can have that dream.
Yes.
The state-funded dream of suburbia, of urban sprawl.
Well, it's not state-funded necessarily. You
talked about the highways. Those are state-funded.
Right. Yes. I mean,
so you want the state funding.
I want the state funding
for the suburban nightmare with everyone on SSRIs, their cookie cutter houses.
Like yes, it's not for me, but it's quintessential middle class American, the American dream, right? So I mean, no, do I want it personally? No, I don't want that. But a lot of people scoff at what I want, right? You know, not everybody wants to live in the heart of New York City. And people think that I'm psychotic for that, and they love their suburban life. So that's a personal difference. But in terms of the American middle class, I think that after World War II, you saw it completely decimated, and you saw the Great Society and FDR responding to this problem of a 25% unemployment rate and sort of the remnants of what happens when markets are not regulated.
No,
enough.
That's what happens when markets get regulated too much.
Yeah, but prior to FDR, I think that you were looking at
the engineer who wanted to restructure. Hoover's not. Oh no! Check your history. Wait, Hoover is not a limited government guy. Hoover was an engineer who believed that he could engineer the economy. He was the primary first central planner of American system.
But okay, so when 1946 FDR comes in, he expands the state.
FDR is dead.
Or FDR died in 50. When did he come in? 33.
It's in that range-ish. Yeah.
Yeah. Somewhere in there, right? He died in 46. 33. He comes in. He expands the state drastically. In the aftermath of World War II. What was the problem that he was responding to that made that response?
Bank runs.
That right. The collapsing banking.
Yeah, collapsing banking. He's responding to the fact that Like when you have really, really high unemployment, there are two different reasons you could have that. You could have really high transitory unemployment, where the people who are rotating through, and then you have a really high unemployable people. These are two very different issues. And so you can have the problem of, and this is where we normally have unemployment at somewhere between 4 to 8%. And 8's pretty high, but it gets up there sometimes. And, but it's sort of that range of just like, not everyone's always going to have a job. People are going to like, they leave their job for a little bit. The sort of percent of time that you spend looking between jobs, if it's purely transitory, that will be the unemployment rate.
Yeah, I think 4% is considered true employment, right?
Extremely reasonable. Then you have the problem of where you have people who become unemployable, where the amount of value that you could provide is less than the amount of value that you need to take a job. And that can become in almost a transitory way where you just refuse to take a job that won't pay you a certain amount. Or it could be in the case of like, like an extreme AI or like a minimum wage ideas or these kind of things where like, if the minimum wage is say $20 and I only provide $17 to the company, they won't hire me. Like they will not do it. And so what happened, like huge throughout all of like leading up under Hoover.
You sound a little bit like Karl Marx and the idea of the unfair labor or the unfree laborer, right? This idea that the only way you get hired is if you provide more value to the company than you are, right? Then you're getting paid.
Well, the last marginal hire will be equal. But but that doesn't mean that's unfair. That's just, it has to be that way.
Well, it doesn't mean it's unfair, but it does mean that it's in a way involuntary, right? And I'm not a Marxist at all, but I would say that, right, you can't opt out of a capitalist system, right? So that's Marx's idea.
We can't opt out of entropy. Like I need food.
Right, exactly. But that's the unfree laborer, right? Which is that I have to get a job.
To give me food unless I give them something.
Right, of course.
Sure. I guess in that way, sure. Like you need to provide value to get value.
Right, you need to provide value to get value, but you also have to, what the value that you get paid for has to be less than the value that you provide, which I think is the point.
On the marginal level, it actually won't be. On the last hire, it'll be equal. But you have, decreasing marginal returns. And so if you're the last, like you can't decide who is the last hire. But if you remove, like the company is going to maximize to the point where the last person they hired was equal value to them.
I got you. So I think that where you and I sort of differ is that I don't necessarily, I can subscribe to a lot of your ideas in certain contexts. Yeah. So, and then I could subscribe to, like, for example, I'm not a redistributionist all the time in every setting. I'm also not an Austrian all the time in every setting. I think one kind of salient example is Argentina. I think Javier Milei is doing precisely the right thing. And he is totally...
I love him.
Yes, right? He's a big Austrian guy. And I'm not going to, if I was, a president of Argentina, I'm not going to start talking about redistribution, right? There's nothing to redistribute. That would be retarded. Yeah. So I'm not going to do that. And then there are, we were talking about the Soviet Union a little bit earlier, right? Post-Soviet Union Estonia, I think, is a great example. Hong Kong is an example that your guys like to talk about, right? It's this place where, when it was autonomous after being a British colony, I think sometime in the 1970s, it's a place with absolutely no resources. There's really nothing great about Hong Kong, but they were able to build a thriving economy through Austrian ideas, through limited government and economics. So I think in certain cases, you and I are 100% aligned.
Hong Kong's still very wealthy now. Though.
Yeah.
And they don't got to redistribute,
and it's worked for them. But again, and and they don't have to redistribute.
They also have a homogenous population. Right. There's a lot of cultural differences.
Right. There's a lot of cultural differences. Exactly. But my thing is that I think regimes, dominant political orders expire / get exhausted. And I don't know, are you familiar with Steven Skowronek's theory of political cycles?
Tell me.
It's a very fascinating idea.
I'm ready.
Yes. So essentially the idea is that politics works in cycles, and we have a president, let's say, like what he would describe as a reconstructionist president, a president who ushers in a new dominant political regime. FDR would be an example, right? He ushered in the Great Society, the New Deal.
Well, Great Society is LBJ.
Right, or he ushered in, New Deal. LBJ, Great Society.
But FDR is basically the same as Hoover. He's a little more extreme, but there's a pretty strong continuation between Hoover.
But he
and FDR.
ushered in this
and the Hoover Dam is it's called the Hoover Dam for a reason.
Yeah, he
was doing mass state programs. He was using the power of the bully pulpit and other sort of crony systems to fix wages higher. He was trying to do central planning. I don't think it's right that FDR is really restructuring everything. I think he's a continuation of it.
That's
Hoover.
interesting. That's not the way that they. I just don't know enough about Hoover, honestly, so I can't necessarily agree or disagree with you. But that's just often not the way that
It's
he's
funny because
spoken
I
about.
like the Hoover Institute out of Stanford. I just don't like Hoover, the president.
Right. Yeah. But anyway, the point is that FDR, whether or not he was an extension of Hoover, is kind of in this framework thought to be a Reconstructionist president. He ushered in a new political regime, this New Deal world order that continued through, let's say, Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter would be considered a disjunctive president. He's affiliated with this old political regime that served a purpose, but has now crumbled and failed. And that's when you started seeing
Nixon,
stagflation. Yeah, runs through Nixon. Yeah.
Interesting.
So that's when you start seeing stagflation and a floundering economy. And then when you have a disjunctive president, you get a new reconstructive president who's responding to the problems of the exhausted previous political regime, in which case would be Ronald Reagan, who's now your new reconstructive president who dismantles the Keynesian economics of FDR and ushers in this laissez-faire, pro-market political regime that has dominated from Ronald Reagan all the way up through, you could even say, Trump 1. And all the presidents up until that point, or throughout the Reconstructionist president, are known as articulate presidents who essentially articulate the regime. So, for example, Bill Clinton says, the age of big government is over. He's using the Ronald Reagan
meanwhile,
playbook.
him and Bush, though, are using mass subsidies they're restructuring the university system. They're restructuring
It's not
the
honest.
housing system. Yeah. They're this theory just doesn't check out to me. I think the biggest reason why the economic booms happened in the 60s was just because Europe was destroyed. We're the only ones building anything. And we had the Marshall Plan and all this stuff of just global politics. We also have an enormous uptick in the Industrial Revolution. Same thing, you have the growth that happened in the 90s is not a product of Bill Clinton's removal of government. In many ways, he expanded a lot of parts of government. It's mostly just
it wasn't. It was the
internet.
Reagan regime is a little bit different from your sort of framework of Austrian economics. I would say that Ronald Reagan's doctrine of small government, laissez-faire policies, sort of trickle down, was pretty dominant throughout Bill Clinton, even portions of Obama. Of course, it's not from your prism. You want to throw it all away, but I would still say that Ronald Reagan's political regime, political world order kind of loomed over his administration now up until Trump won, and then Biden tried to usher in something a little bit new and bottom up, middle out.
I mean, one of the ways that Ronald Reagan did an enormous amount of sort of deregulation and rolling back some of these things was because Chevron deference was formed in '84 under Reagan, where he tried to create that bubble concept where the EPA, they had all these rules about when you build out new kinds of polluting devices, you have to go get them investigated. And he redefined a polluting device to mean the whole plant instead of a single thing. And then the idea of, Chevron deference, where the administration can say, as long as the wording is valid, it can be different than it was last year, different than it was next year. And we can just change it out and we don't have to rely on precedent anymore.
I actually didn't know about this.
And this is Chevron deference. And this is one of the ways that Reagan did a huge amount of the deregulation was off Chevron deference. But then through Chevron deference, this is the same way that Barack Obama, Bill Clinton, and Joe Biden added an enormous amount of regulation. And so the framework that Reagan used is the same one because it's just an expansion of the federal state. It's an expansion of executive power, and it's a restriction of both the legislative and judicial branch. And we just got Chevron deference overturned and returned back to Skidmore deference in the Lopez case in 2024.
Interesting.
And so that's going to be the huge rollback, is the state's expansion of power of allowing the unitary executive to reinterpret things that were, they got so bad that they could literally interpret their own jurisdiction. Just a branch could just, unelected member of the EPA, member of the FDA, member of the FCC, whatever, was being able to interpret their own jurisdiction under Chevron deference.
Okay.
And that's the expansion of the state that happened after Reagan.
Okay, so your fundamental point is that Reagan actually wasn't a small government laissez-faire?
No, it's not that the era that you can't have an era of small government laissez-faire after Reagan, because of the fact that the way that Reagan himself was doing laissez-faire stuff was expanding the power of the executive branch, which then was used largely under Obama, but also under Biden and Clinton and even Bush to add more regulation. Like you just look at the number of regulations. They didn't go down during that period. They went up hugely. And so this theory you're proposing of like eras of politics,
right? Yeah, political regimes and eras.
I'm just not convinced.
So you're not convinced by it. Okay, okay, fine. That's totally okay. But the fundamental point that I want to make is that the political regime that we're in now is what I would describe as crony capitalism, in which there is a disproportionate amount of wealth inequality. I would point you to the Gini coefficient, right? Which is this notion that at 0, everybody has the same amount of money. Mm-hmm. At 1, one person has all the money.
So what's your ideal? What Gini coefficient do you want? What's your principle?
I mean, right now we're at 0.85. I mean, I think a more reasonable number would be around 0.6.
0.6.
Yeah.
So if we're at 0.64, it's too much?
Look, I don't have a threshold necessarily where I'm like, that's the perfect number, and that would be something that I think would be interesting to look into.
The devil's in the details.
It is, yeah. But I can say that right now what we're looking at, 0.85 is too high.
But it's not at all like the Laffer curve, because the Laffer curve actually has a principle. And we can debate where the maximizing number is, but we know exactly what thing we're maximizing for, which is government revenue based on your income tax.
Yeah, yep.
Even if you don't know the number, what are you maximizing with changing the Gini coefficient? What do you want to maximize?
I think that what I would like to maximize, well, I don't even necessarily, what do you mean by maximize? Tell me what you mean by maximize.
So like, take the Laffer curve example again. The idea that if you were to tax people 100%, no one would ever work.
That's right.
If you tax them 0%, people work a lot, but you have no revenue.
Right.
And so that means that there's a point where you're growing and then a point where it starts to drop off.
And where's that point?
And the point, you can have debate about where that point is, but there is a direct correct answer. Like somebody maybe that doesn't know, but there is a correct maximizing point. And the thing that you are maximizing for with the Laffer curve is what tax rate will have the highest what tax rate will have the highest total revenue to the federal government. And so it's not arbitrary. You can debate about what that point is, but there is a principle that you're maximizing for, which is federal revenue. The Gini coefficient people, I've never understood their objection because I can't ever hear them voice why 0.6 would be okay and 0.85 is not. What thing are you maximizing for that makes you think 0.6 is okay?
Okay, now I understand your question. Thank you. So I would say that here's the way I want to answer this. When I don't have an exact number that I'm able to give you right now, but I can talk a little bit about what I'm maximizing for and why I think 0.85 isn't good.
Yeah.
And it kind of brings me to what I think the fundamental role of government is. You and I both agree on most of our conservative principles, right? I want to see people having babies. I want to see people owning homes. I want to see young people able to afford buying a home. And so what am I maximizing for? I'm maximizing for the ability to live the American dream, the ability to do things that we have been able to do.
So let's see how that's not a thing you can maximize for, because that's a subjective thing.
Yes.
Government revenue is a thing I can maximize
it's subjective
for.
It's subjective and it's not subjective. Prosperity is here. This is a very rich country, but it's just not fairly distributed. And
no, fair is subjective. You can't maximize for fairness.
Okay, and I agree with that. You can't maximize for fairness, but I would say if we just take a step back and look at sort of the state of America right now, we have a very bifurcated system in which we have really, really rich people who are partying like Great Gatsby in the 1920s.
They're having fun.
They're having an amazing time. I mean, I live in New York City, right? I see this all the time. New York City has never been better. There's new private membership clubs opening left and right. You can't get into a massive amount of extremely expensive reservations. It's amazing. It's an amazing place to live if you have a fuck ton of money.
If you do.
If you don't have a fuck ton of money, it's an absolutely brutal place to live. And I think that, so when you're asking me what I'm maximizing for.
But would you rather be poor in New York now or poor in New York in 1950?
That's an interesting question. I'd rather be poor in New York now.
Right.
But that I don't think is the way that people look at success. People don't think that way. People don't think in objective terms. They look at the total amount of wealth available, and they look at people taking private planes, and they look at this crazy boom period that America is currently experiencing, and then they look at themselves that aren't able to afford a home, healthcare prices are through the roof, childcare prices are through the roof.
All three of those are the product of state intervention.
And they say, well, maybe.
Like,
and
we could talk about any one of those if you
right,
want to, but
yeah,
they're all the fault of the state.
Right. And I mean, look, and I think that is an argument. My argument that I'm making with when I bring up something like the Gini coefficient is that right now, too much money has been amassed into the hands of too small of people.
What's too much?
Well,
how much can they have?
I can't give you a monetary number.
What thing? If you can't give a number, that's fine. It's like Laffer curve. I say it's probably somewhere around 32%, but people debate it. Some people say 28, some people say 35. Like there's debates about that. But I can tell you what we're maximizing for. Don't tell me how much money Elon Musk can have. Okay. Tell me what are you maximizing for by reducing Jeff Bezos' income or Jeff Bezos' net worth.
I think I'm maximizing for some level of aggregate happiness, which
you can't do that.
It's
not
measurable.
a real measurement.
It is measurable because, and the way that I would measure it is people say money can't buy happiness. It's not true. Money can buy happiness up to a point. I think it's something like your $5 million in first dollar starts to have absolutely no effect on your total life happiness.
I don't know. Bigger yacht sounds cool.
Right? Right. No, I get it. But it's like, in terms of, and happiness is measurable. We are able to measure a person's level of happiness and fulfillment.
It doesn't correlate strongly with suicide rates. Like you see this all across, like Finland used to record very high happiness and had very high suicide rates. They then still report very high happiness, but they fixed their suicide rates. The same thing, like the suicide rates are just across like very wealthy people. Like these ideas that happiness correlates to anything else, happiness is so subjective. It's full of social desirability bias. You cannot measure happiness.
I mean, you hate the state. Do you not agree that if money becomes so concentrated into the hands of so few, that they themselves become a de facto version of the state? Because to me, the answer to that question is yes.
They can compel me. If the state is a monopoly on violence. The second Jeff Bezos gets his own monopoly on violence, we have a problem. And so if you're talking about like, you have to maximize against Jeff Bezos, like launching war against the U.S. government.
Right? And that's kind of what we're seeing.
Which is why the state shouldn't be for sale, which is a state problem. You don't get mad at the drug buyers, you get mad at the drug dealers. The person selling the state's the problem.
I know, but what are you going to do? Make lobbying illegal? Like,
you just make the state so small it doesn't matter.
I know, but even if a state...
10th Amendment, pass the amendment word for word. I just make regulation illegal, basically. Almost all of it.
You can buy a small state, right? So you're saying that if the state is so small, it's totally inconsequential.
Yeah, it just does not... Like, the reason to buy the state is so I can use the state to fuck you up. Mm-hmm. That's why, we're competing business people. Yeah. And we both go and try to buy the state so they can write regulations, like they did with the Telecommunications Act of classifying various things as Title I versus Title II. Whereas Title II got regulated a lot harsher than Title I did. This was one of the Chevron deference problems, where the state could just like randomly decide, this company's Title I now, this company's Title II now, and just destroy entire regulation systems. Mm-hmm. The solution to that is not to make so that no one can get wealthy enough to buy it off. Can't happen. Will never happen. If you want to, like, people will always try to buy favors. The solution to that is to remove the Chevron deference thing and allow the people to elect Congress people who are directly passing these laws or not, and return the control back to a democratized system.
Okay, so let's say that you do that.
Yeah.
Right? And now you have a lot of really rich people in corporations. Mm-hmm. And...
as you always will.
Right, as you always will.
Even in the Soviet Union, you still had that.
So I guess
you will always have that.
When I look at that, right, to me, that's not capitalism functioning. I mean, Adam Smith talks about this, right? I mean, you might not be a big Adam
Smith
fan.
was a believer in the labor theory of value, which is just categorically incorrect.
I mean, but I think...
I love Adam Smith. He's a hero. Mm-hmm. But he's like the Freud of economics, where all his theories are wrong, but overall he established a system that we then like develop further off of. He's like I love him so much.
I mean, he warned against the elites, and he was much more concerned about the concentration of power than he was about the freeloader sitting on his couch eating donuts.
Well, there weren't freeloaders at the time. There was no income tax. You can't afford freeloaders then.
Right, but he never warned of even the possibility
because no one considered
of an exploitation.
An income tax. I mean, the Constitution originally made income tax illegal. They had to pass the 16th Amendment to even allow it because it was so shocking that you would ever even consider doing that. And when they first did it, it was supposed to be temporary and only on the very wealthy, just to fund World War I. Oops, temporary. Now they own a third of my net worth. Like, what?
Right. No, look, I hear you. I want to go back to the original point on the redistribution of wealth
On the
and what I
genie
was talking
thing.
about.
I still don't get what you're maximizing for.
I know, and it's an interesting question that I admit is very difficult to answer. And I guess that again,
Which is the problem. The thing I'm getting to actually with this is you can't answer it.
No, it's a very
Central
challenging
planners. It's not that it's challenging in that you don't have an answer for it, or I got you, whatever. I'm not expecting you to go like, oh, let me go research it. My point is, no matter how researched you are, no one can answer this question, and that's why central planning does not work. There is no genie thing that we're supposed to maximize for. Anytime that you're using a measurement of economic health as a goal, it stops being a good measure. You cannot say, I want it to be 0.6. If you do that, you dismantle all things around it. It doesn't work.
So does the Gini index or Gini coefficient have any relevance to you? Do you care what number
it is interesting for looking at, and you can use it for measuring various kinds of health. And it could get to the point where you're like, oh,
is there ever a time where you got to do something about it?
About Gini? No.
So
no.
it just doesn't matter.
Can be
let rich people continue to amass more and more and more wealth and have the total amount of wealth available be concentrated into the hands of fewer and fewer and fewer people.
Depends on why that's happening. If it's happening because of cronyism, then no, you definitely can't do that. If it's happening because those people provided me an immense amount of value, yeah. Like the fact that Bezos is rich, my life is awesome because of Jeff Bezos. The fact I can order anything I want for $7 and it'll show up at my house, that's so cool.
There's a difference between market inequality and state inequality. You and I both agree that market inequality is totally fine.
And so
state
Gini
inequality
is extremely useful for measuring whether or not something is happening. It cannot tell you whether that's good. And so then you have to look at, okay, are people getting richer? Are they getting poorer? Who is getting richer? Who is getting poorer? What's happening? Gini will tell you the ratio between these things. And if that ratio is changing, then you go, oh, interesting. Why is it changing? And maybe it's changing for a good reason, maybe it's changing for a bad reason. But you cannot, you certainly cannot look at a particular number and say that's bad. B, you can't even look at a change in the number and know that's bad. You have to tell me why it happened. You tell me what you're maximizing for in doing that. You say, I'm maximizing for human flourishing. Well, so am I. That means nothing.
Well, we know why it happened. And my point is that I want to institute a series of policies that would make it not happen anymore.
I want to get rid of all those policies that made it happen to begin with. So like, there's a problem the state generated, and you want to solve it with more state. Well, I want to just get the state to stop causing that problem.
I guess here, well, let me give you some solutions, and you could tell me what you think. I think the first thing that I would want to do is we talked about equalizing capital gains and income tax. Another thing I would want to do is
And you would include a flat rate on that where the poor pay the same rate?
I would not. No, I believe in the progressive tax. Absolutely not. Yeah.
How progressive?
I think that I would want to see, let's say, an alternative minimum tax of 40% over on your 10 million in first dollar. I think I would want to see a corporate alternative minimum tax on companies that generate over $500 million a year of around 40%. And I would want to take a machete to the tax code and delete all possible loopholes.
I'm with you on the loopholes.
So none of this appreciated depreciation bullshit. No. If you make $500 million, your $500 million in first dollar is taxed at 40%, period. Same thing.
Where'd you get 40% from? Is that a vibe? Is that, what are you maximizing for on that number?
I'm maximizing for, I obviously don't want to, I mean, it's similar to the Laffer curve idea. I don't want to stifle innovation and make it so that it's not worth to even engage in business enterprises.
Well, all taxes do that.
To an extent, yeah, but I think that this is the thing, right? I'm maximizing for capitalism to function properly. And this is where you and I have a disagreement.
What's the number that you're using to maximize? How are you measuring that?
You're asking how I got my 40%?
Or capitalism functioning properly? Anything? How are you measuring? What's the?
I think that
is there any science in your theory at all?
I think that, well, perhaps not, and I think that there could be more, and I'll concede that point to you.
Which of your claims are falsifiable? What thing, like you say it's 40%. What piece of evidence could I give you that would convince you that shouldn't happen? That
should convince me. That should convince me what? That we shouldn't have an alternative minimum tax on corporations making, but that it's okay that corporations making over $500 million have no federal tax liability.
Yeah. Is there anything that could convince you of that? What's the falsifiability of that claim?
That could convince me that it's fine.
Yeah.
I think that I would say if you wanted to convince me that it's fine that large corporations don't pay any federal income tax, you would have to first see a booming middle class,
which we have.
I would disagree with that. I wouldn't agree.
Would you rather be middle class now or in 1950?
Yeah, but that's not. I know that that's the way Austrians look at it, but I don't look at it as, okay, as long as everybody's gotten better, it doesn't matter how. If I'm 5% better now, and the top 1% is 500% better now, it doesn't matter because we're all better now.
Yeah.
I don't look at it like that.
Why not?
Because I don't think that that's how the human mind works. I think that we look at things relative to each other in a particular time period. So I don't think that
the relative to each other problem is mostly just the fact of these. Like, it used to be I compare myself to the people in my town, and maybe that guy's a little wealthier than me. His house is a little bigger than mine. His wife's a little hotter than mine. But like, we're all in the same town. Now I see fucking, Jake Paul. I see Elon Musk. I see, all these people. I see, these 7-year-olds who are balling out on, TikTok, doing their opening, whatever. Like, that's not a product of the income inequality. The genie could be 0.6 and Elon Musk is still going to be richer than I am. The fact that like Nathan Mervold can make me jealous. The fact that I can be jealous of Jake Paul and I can be jealous of Elon Musk. If you lowered Elon Musk's wealth down to Jake Paul's, I'm still jealous. The genie has no impact on that. That's just a product of this.
I see. I agree that the phone has absolutely not been helpful, and social media has not been helpful. I think that I don't agree that just because I've gotten slightly, and also it's not even true that we've gotten slightly better. On housing, for example, we've just gotten flat out worse, right? Like, it's harder for me to buy a home you're in this generation, right?
Yeah.
You have to see that we are in a uniquely difficult spot, and there's a reason. And there are
it's zoning. It's zoning,
and NIMBYism, and I agree with all of that. Yeah, it's a disaster. We have to incentivize
interesting
more
thing
housing.
Too. The price of housing per square foot is fairly consistent. Houses just got bigger. Everything got bigger, which is why CPI is bad, because CPI is measuring a lot of bad stuff into it. But no, it's a product of regulation, and it's a product of. I mean
I would have to disagree a little bit there, because you could see, right, the same house that was $285,000 20 years ago is now $700,000, and you could also see that wages have not kept up with that multiple. So
no, you can look at it by the wages have kept up by square footage. We could just fact check this afterward if you want to. They have.
No, I agree with you, because I've seen this argument being made, but also what I think that you're not considering is that the percentage of my income relative, like that the median household income versus the median home price, that multiple
by square foot
is completely different.
Yeah,
than it was.
Houses are bigger.
20 years ago.
They're also nicer. They have more AC. They're in better areas. We've had urban sprawl, so areas that used to be more rural are now more city or more centralized. You have a lot of things like this.
And a lot of this is
your highway system caused part of this problem.
right. But it's NIMBYism and zoning, right? It's that you don't want. There hasn't been any efforts to build affordable housing.
There were in Austin, and everything got a lot better there.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think that I'm not a hater of landlords. I'm a real estate agent. I like landlords.
Excellent, yes, sir.
I like landlords. I'm not trying to shit all over landlords. They're
agree. Heroes. They're some of the best people.
Yeah, we need them. Now, do I think that they should be completely left to their own devices? This is where you and I might be very different. No, I do not, because I have seen what happens when you leave a landlord to their own devices, and the place turns into a complete shithole. And
no, that basically only happens under rent control.
No, it certainly happens under rent control. I'm a deeply skeptical of rent control.
Your landlord makes it a shithole, you just leave.
Yes, I understand that theory, but also you need housing.
Yeah, of course.
Right? So you need that. So they know that kind of got you by the balls
I need a tenant.
little bit.
I bought it for a tenent. My tenants won't come to me. They won't come to me. This is just your market clearing rate.
Well, it depends on supply and demand, right?
Yes, which is your market clearing rate.
Yes, exactly. So it's unfortunate that
get rid of the zoning, you'll increase the supply,
and then landlords
won't have the power anymore. Exactly.
Yes, yeah.
So you don't need to regulate the landlord into being good. You can require the incentive to structure the landlord into being good. Everyone is greedy. Everyone is always greedy all the time under all systems forever. That's just entropy. So you need to not. If you create a system of rules. I haven't read enough Hobbes to say for certain. From what I have read of him, I like, but
I don't think you like the Leviathan.
I haven't read Leviathan.
Well, I think I'm sure even just the idea of Leviathan, right? I think this idea of kind of like, because Hobbes and Rousseau disagree on a lot of things.
Rousseau.
I know that you hate Rousseau.
I think Rousseau is disgusting. I think Rousseau has done more damage than maybe almost anybody ever. Rousseau is one of my least favorite people ever.
I mean, I think one thing that Rousseau got right, and you probably don't agree with this, is I do think that Rousseau got the idea right that humans are fundamentally good. I don't believe that humans are fundamentally evil. I know the Austrians don't agree with this at all.
Neither do the Christians.
I know. You're right.
I'm a Christian.
Yeah, and it's true. Most Christians too also totally balk at the idea. But one thing that I mean
most it's Genesis. Like any Christian who's trying to claim people are fundamentally good has just not read the gospel. Like
I think that Hobbes did believe that you should sacrifice a level of freedom to the state in order to maintain order.
Oh, you have to.
Rousseau also was big in, I mean, the general,
means.
Yeah, exactly.
You allow them to have a monopoly on violence. You sacrifice your violent urge.
Mm-hmm. Right. So, okay. So you would agree with that. Well, because a total, state abolitionist would reject.
Yeah, no, I'm not that. I'm not on the Rothbard and Cap shit. Like,
right.
I have a lot of sympathy for him. I wish in my soul that we could do it. And the way that a lot of liberals are like, oh, I think communism's a beautiful idea, but it just doesn't work in practice. That's my ANCAP. I'm like, oh, it's such a beautiful idea. But if your theory only works in theory, you just have a shitty theory.
Yeah. Okay, so I just want to go back to what we were saying before about the alternative minimum tax, why I think it's 40%. I ultimately just kind of, for me, go back to what I want government to do. And I want government to be a force that is able to change people's lives for the better. And I think that may be one of the places where you and I have this sort of fundamental disagreement, because I don't think that that's what you think government should be doing. No. So
I like the Reagan. The scariest words are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
And I'm here to help. Yeah, and look, I'm not like a government's going to solve all of our problems guy, but I do think that there needs to be a level of, okay, if we have a group of people that are really, really struggling, people who are working, right? I mean, and it's not like right now we have just a bunch of freeloading imbeciles sitting on the couch eating donuts. We do have those, but we also have a lot of people who are working and are also severely struggling. And I think
no one starves. That doesn't happen.
Nobody's starving, but still that shouldn't be the metric, right? We're too rich of a country for that to be like, oh, well, nobody's starving.
Well, I mean, everyone can go to university if they want to.
Well, if they want to put themselves in colossal levels of debt.
Not really. You go to community college for 2 years, you go to state school. Especially if you have an IQ above 110, you get a million different scholarships. Like the idea that, first of all, the idea that we have 90 IQ people even going to university is a strange system.
I don't think they should have any business in university anyway. Yeah. It's unhelpful.
And it's because the state has created this system where they've removed the idea of bankruptcy from it, which is crazy. You talk about the expansion of the state that happened in the 90s. The fact that you can't declare bankruptcy is nuts.
It's nuts. I'm happy that you're saying that, because it's absolutely ridiculous. That's one of the loopholes I would like to get rid of. Why can't you declare bankruptcy on your student loans? It makes absolutely no sense. What do you think about something like, one policy that I'm big on would be eliminating the step up in basis at death. So this idea that if grandpa invested $100,000 into the stock market, that $100,000 over the course of his life went to $2 million. He never sold anything, so he never realized the gain and he never had to pay taxes. Yeah. Instead, he just borrowed against his $2 million to fund various things in his life. He then leaves it to his grandson, and the step up in basis, it goes to $2 million. Grandson Jimmy can now sell it for $2 million and not pay a dime of taxes on it. Yeah. That to me is a classic loophole.
I don't like that.
It's dynastic.
But I also hate the death tax. I think a state's tax is evil.
You think a state tax in general is evil?
I think a state tax rate should be 0. I think corporate tax rate should be 0. I think these are double taxation. I think these are ridiculous.
So if you inherit $100 million, you shouldn't pay a dime on that.
No. No, why would I?
It's because I don't believe in a system of dynastic wealth. I don't think it's helpful. And then I look at that $100 million and I say, okay, well, oh boy, you're going to hate this. I say, what can I do with that $100 million? I could say, well, at your $5 million in first dollar provides no utility to you whatsoever. You didn't work for it. I don't even believe you're entitled to it. And if your argument is that you should have that full $100 million so that you could have a mega yacht opposed to a mini mega yacht just because your grandpa had all the money, I would say, as the state, no. You participated in a capitalist system. You drove your goods on roads and bridges we all paid for. You benefited from our public education system. You can have, $5 million for, or even let's make it $20 million. And then I think that I would institute an estate tax on your $20 million and first dollar of maybe 70%.
Mm-hmm. So I could walk you through the syllogisms of why what my father earned is mine now. But I think it's more interesting. I'm going to argue for socialism to you, because I don't think you can defend against socialism from the positions that you've taken. I don't think you have any principle that I think that the pragmatic stance that you've taken will just evolve into socialism. So you said 5, you know what? I'll give you 20. I said, no. I give you 1. You get 1 million, and past that, 100% estates tax. You can send $1 million to your kids, but your kids didn't earn that.
Mm-hmm.
And so past $1 million, I as the state am going to seize 100%. Because think of all the good I could do. Think about all the houses people can't afford. You don't need a big mega yacht. You don't even need a mega yacht. You can have your little speedboat. $1 million, that's so much money.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to seize the rest of it, 100% past $1 million, and I'm going to use it to go fund programs for elementary school students who can't have good schools. They deserve those schools. You don't deserve that money. Tell me why that's wrong.
Well, I would argue that it's excessive. And I would argue that...
How is it excessive? What are you maximizing for and claiming it's excessive? It's excessive is subjective. Give me a falsifiable statement. Why is that excessive?
I mean, for me, it's excessive because there's a $1 million and $5 million provides a measurable difference. Would you at least agree with the idea that there's a very big difference between $1 million, $5 million, let's say $5 million and 10 versus 500 million and 600 million.
Where do I live? What am I trying to do with that money? Maybe I'm trying to run a huge charity. I mean, charity is way more efficient than state is almost always. Like the $100 million given the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, probably a lot better than given to the federal government to go blow up children in Iran. I mean, I'm sorry. So
it's unfortunately true. I think that
so $100 million more to do what? To do where? Where am I? If I'm in California, $1 million can buy me a shack. If I'm in fucking LA, if I'm out there in like rural Oklahoma, $1 million, I'm living large. Which is again the point about the jealousy thing about your phone, about your locality issues. And so you try to tell me, oh well, it's it's 1 million, it's 5 million, it's 10 million, it's 500 million. To do what? Wealth is subjective. It's all subjective. What are you maximizing for?
So
this is why you can't centrally plan, because you can't maximize, because you will always get it wrong if you try to centrally plan.
Right. And look, I think that...
So explain why you're not a socialist. It's just excessive. That's the whole reason.
No, I'm not a socialist. Well, because I believe in markets, and I believe about a lot of the things
why
that
aren't
we
you
talked
a
about.
complete redistributionist? When you die, not even $1 million, I'm going to say you can't give any money to your kids. You get what you earn. You get the fruits of your own labor. And if you can have $10 million if you want. If you earned it, you can have it. But when you die, I, as the state, am going to redistribute all your wealth.
So you don't think there's a difference between socialism and then the regulated market, like a neoclassical liberal version?
I mean, the word socialism is so semantically overloaded.
It is,
that, like, some people mean that when people will talk about like democratic socialism,
but like a philosophical level, right?
Yeah.
The idea of true socialism versus well-regulated markets. I'm not advocating for socialism.
No, I see why you're not a true socialist. Right. Why you don't think the state should own all the things.
Of course.
But I don't understand why you don't believe in near 100% redistribution.
I don't believe in it.
Yeah, but why not?
Because I don't believe in ameliorating all inequality. I believe in providing a baseline.
What's the baseline? What baseline?
Okay, that's an interesting question. I think that there are certain things you can look at that measurably improve society. The ability to own a home makes people want to have more babies. It incentivizes marriage. It incentivizes
people get wealthier, they have less kids.
Well, okay, well, there's a point there, right? So if people are too poor to afford a home, they don't have children.
No, people used to have a lot of kids in apartments all the time. It's just a cultural problem.
Part of it is a cultural problem.
I mean, people in Nigeria are having a lot of kids. They don't have homes. They got shacks.
There's
it's a cultural problem.
Yeah, and Africa has very high.
And the culture problem is so great that it becomes an error margin that you cannot measure the income problem within it. The culture issue is it just dominates the whole calculus.
Well, but if you ask people, why aren't you having children?
People are lying to you.
I struggle
because when they get wealthy, they don't have kids. They don't start having kids when they can afford it. They have 1 or 2 even then. They're lying. And in social desirability bias, they don't even know they're lying. They're not trying to lie. They're not trying to be evil. Right. They're just not right about that.
They just don't know. I mean, I would say I agree with a lot of the things that you're saying, and I think that there are a lot of reasons for the declining birth rates that are beyond just money problems.
They're basically all cultural. And we could talk about why that culture happened.
Yeah, the deinstitutionalization of marriage and things like that, women entering the workforce, there's all sorts of various reasons for that. I also do think that our generation is in a uniquely tough spot economically, just in terms of wages, in terms of housing, in terms of total debt.
No, you don't think that.
Student
You'd
loan
rather
debt.
be in our generation now than you would be in 1950.
But there are things about being in 1950 that I would like to bring here.
That's
If
true.
you're-
There
you
are
know,
some things from the 50s that were great.
that were fantastic,
Yeah.
right? Wages were indexed for productivity and inflation. I think wages should be indexed for productivity and inflation today. They're not.
I mean, it's just a gold standard problem. Like, you get off the gold standard, you don't have real money anymore.
And say more about what you mean by that.
In 73, when we got off the gold standard, that's when you get, you know, you get the stagflation of the 70s.
Mhm.
It's I have a good friend of mine. He's basically a socialist, really smart guy. Socialism is a little wild though. But his favorite chart is you can plot, you know, wages against the value of all these things, and they all go pretty consistently until the early 70s, where they all like level off, and you just get mass stagflation. It's all awful. And you plot it by like lower middle class, upper class, and then in the sort of mid 80s, early 80s, the wealthy start growing, and the rest of people don't. And he loves to point to this graph, and he goes, "Look, in the 80s, the rich took off, and everybody else didn't." The problem is everyone stagnated in the 70s, and then some people stopped stagnating. So what happened in the 70s? We got off the gold standard. We stopped having real money fixed to something. We had purely fiat money from that point on, in which case now the money is entirely tied to the power of the state. That's it.
So would you go back? You don't believe in the fiat currency?
No, I do not believe in fiat currency. Absolutely not. No, I would absolutely reinstate a gold standard. I would peg it to gold.
Really?
Yes.
That's fascinating to me. I don't have a strong opinion necessarily on it, but it's interesting. I mean, I think like all fiat currencies, they all tend to fail. Right?
Yeah,
I don't,
always fail.
I don't think
It
there's
never
an
goes
example
well.
of a fiat currency not.
Yeah.
The
only reason that ours kind of works is because we keep bombing actual countries.
Right.
You're like, you better use our money or else. Like,
Yeah.
that's why you got to go capture Maduro.
Yeah.
You have to. You have to. Like, our entire system will collapse if people stop using the dollar. The dollar is used because people use it. It's just fucking circular. It's nothing.
Right. Well, that's why Argentina, right? Our guy Javier is trying to, bring the U.S. dollar into Argentina, right?
Yeah,
because
you can peg it to the U.S. dollar, which is just pegged to the U.S. military, which $1 trillion a year, they'll fuck you up.
Okay, so we've kind of interrogated what I think fundamental role of government should be. We've talked a little bit about like this like voluntary.
Only on economics, actually. We haven't talked about the cultural impact of the government. If we want to do that, we can.
Yes, we totally can. I mean,
you and I probably are going to agree.
I think
more
that we're going
though.
to agree on pretty much on pretty much all of the social issues. I mean, we were totally in lockstep on in the Jubilee stuff.
Yeah.
I completely.
You
agree
were a
with
hero in that.
I mean, so were you. Really, really good stuff. I mean, but I think that what's so interesting is that I take my sort of conservative-minded principles, and I see them denigrating in modern society.
I'm with you.
And I find that really, really, really disturbing. And then I look at the modern Republican Party and I see them espouse these values about family building and child rearing and traditional
They don't mean any of it.
And they don't mean any of it. None of it is backed by any sort of genuine policy interest. And so when I look at, for example, childcare costs, I want to lower childcare costs because I believe that if we had lower childcare costs, well, this is the problem. I want to take money from the billionaires. I want to get that 0.85 Gini coefficient lower, and I want to use that additional revenue to fund universal childcare.
So like for 2-year-olds.
Yeah.
Oh, fascinating. No, I think childcare for 2-year-olds is disgusting. I think I have a huge objection to the state incentivizing people to send their kids off to go be raised by the state at age 2. I think just the amount of violence that happens in these places is intense. Not even by abusive older adults, but just by the kids to each other. You put 2-year-olds next to each other in a 10-to-1, 20-to-1 ratio with an adult who doesn't really care, who's scrolling on her phone because she's addicted to it because we all are.
Yeah.
These are bad places for kids.
So then what happens? I mean, we live in an economy where unfortunately most people need 2 people working. So what do you do with the problem of we want people to have children, but also mom and dad need to go to work. So where the fuck did the kids go?
Mom and dad don't have to go to work. One of them just stays home.
But I would love for that to be possible. But one way to accomplish that is through some redistribution.
No, you get rid of redistribution, they will keep working. When you go look at Gen Z women and Gen Z men, when you plot, what their most important values are, the Gen Z women, they're all career, my status, all this stuff. Gen Z men are increasingly putting more things like having a family, having kids, but they don't view that as I'm going to stay home with the kid.
That's right.
And so the women don't want to stay home with the kid. That's the problem. It's the Simone de Beauvoir idea, where you have to create a system where they are divorced from their children, where the state raises them, and then you do more of that, where you take the kids away from her. Oh, your kid's just been born. Oh, you go get your 8 weeks maternity leave, and now we send your kid off to state education. No. No, I actually am extremely opposed to sending 1-year-olds off to state education. Like that would be the worst thing I could possibly imagine, that you establish a system whereby from age 1, we have a universal idea of all the kids are raised all the time by the state. No.
Right. No, I understand why that would be. But okay, so in your ideal world, we live in an economy where only one of the two parents needs to work.
Yeah.
I agree. That was something I would like to
you peg gold back to the dollar. You remove a huge amount of the zoning. We got rid of Chevron deference, but that only happened in 2024. So that's going to, the regulations are going to peel off slow. It's going to happen.
I got to look into that.
Trump's SCOTUS nominees have been hugely excellent. That's one thing that Trump was just a hero on.
I love Amy Coney Barrett. I love them too.
Barrett, Kavanaugh, Gorsuch, these are heroes.
Kavanaugh's great. Gorsuch is. Did you get a chance to read his in the tariff decision? He wrote a really good dissent. Or concurrence. It was concurrence.
I was really annoyed with Alito and Thomas on that.
Yeah.
Because Alito and Thomas have been my guys for a while. I've really liked them. Yeah. And then they just
they bombed.
I don't know what happened on that one.
Yeah, they were terrible. But Gorsuch, I thought, I was also getting a little bit annoyed with him. But he wrote an amazing concurrence on the tariff decision.
He's an amazing writer.
Really,
I have to have a slight allegiance towards Alito as well as Kagan and even Sotomayor because they're Princeton just like me.
Right. Yes, that's right. Exactly. What do you think of Roberts? I appreciate that he's not captured by a specific sort of, right? He's not necessarily a constitutionalist, but he's also not like this living, breathing guy. He kind of has like a very mosaic approach to the Constitution that I've always found riveting personally.
Yeah, I don't like that. I want to know what, I don't like this idea. I don't like this idea that you don't know how the outcome's going to be. And almost all Supreme Court cases are cited 7-2, 8-1, 9-0.
Yeah. You don't know with him which way he's going to go. Which is interesting.
On the controversial ones, you don't know. And I don't like that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's reasonable, that he could wake up one day and say one thing one day, wake up the other day and do the other thing. His argument that he gave for Obamacare being actually a tax system and all that.
You didn't like that?
It seems like you could apply a very similar argument on the tariff thing. I think he kind of picks and chooses a little bit. I don't like him. The other thing that's interesting, Democrats never miss. Their people vote in blocks.
Mm-hmm.
Republican nominees are all over the place. Sandra Day O'Connor, Kennedy, Roberts, they're all over the place. It's very strange. It's because Democrats, like when they try to get someone like Bork, like Joe Biden, they'll Bork him. Make sure he never gets on.
Yeah.
It's a very different environment.
Yeah. You see a lot more, I think, activist judges on the left than you do on the right, which is why Trump has been freaking out over his nominees and not doing what he wants them to do. Let me ask you this question, because we talked a lot about like voluntary exchange, and that's a big thing for you. Do you think that the only condition for that, if an exchange is voluntary, it's legitimate, period, full stop? Because this is something I've been sort of wrestling with, and to me, the answer to that question I think would be no.
I think that was in the details. And what do you mean by legitimate?
The notion that a woman's body count should be totally irrelevant in whether or not you should date her.
Neither should a men's body count be irrelevant. I think that's insane. People are like, oh, body count doesn't matter. It's like, what? No. It's like saying your felony record doesn't matter. Like, I'm sorry, things you did in the past matter. It's
of course
not that like anyone who has a felony has to be evil, but like you did something that like was different. Like you made a choice. Mm-hmm. Like the only way to evaluate your past decisions is by what you say now and what you've done in the past. By their fruits you shall know them.
That's such a a damning sort of piece of evidence that it's not admissible in court, right? You're not allowed to use prior wrongs in court. It's one of the rules of evidence.
Well, yeah, obviously, because people are going to bias themselves.
Right. It's so compelling.
Innocent until proven guilty.
Right. Yeah. But that's kind of what I'm saying about the body count thing. But the reason why I bring this up is because one of the things that, as I was sort of contemplating that I was looking at it, which is that, two people in, a lot of times the argument that people make is, well, it's consensual, right? Mm-hmm. It's two people who are deciding to have, let's just say, a one night stand.
Yeah.
But just because two people are voluntarily deciding to exploit each other does not necessarily
doesn't make it good.
Doesn't make it good.
Yeah.
Doesn't make it good. Doesn't make it more. It's still morally wrong.
And you
to
can
succumb
see that
to
through your logic.
Desires.
Your if P then Q, that means that if not Q then not P.
Right.
The idea that if it's consensual then it's good would imply that if it was not good, it was not consensual.
Right.
Which is where you get this idea where the woman wakes up in the morning and goes, oh, I don't feel good about that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I don't like that. Oh, I don't think I should have done that. But if it's consensual, then it's good. If you presuppose that then means if it's not good, it wasn't consensual. And that's where you get this idea of, oh, I felt bad about my decision, therefore he raped me.
Right.
And so you can sort of almost reductio ad absurdum. You can see it cannot be the case that if it's consensual, then it's good.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not the case that if it's not good, it wasn't consensual.
I totally agree. Would you apply that at all to, let's just say, in an economic context, voluntary exchange versus involuntary exchange? That just because something is voluntary between a worker and between an owner and a worker doesn't necessarily mean that exchange is good or that exchange is fair. And conversely, that there has to be a level of involuntary sort of pressure from a state to ensure that things are enforced in a fair way, to ensure that contracts are enforced, to ensure that people are not being exploited. And you could say, okay, well, if he's being exploited, he can just leave. Well, yes and no, right? Because he eventually is going to have to go somewhere else because he has to participate in the system in order to get money. So there has to be some sort of involuntary force that kind of looms over and makes sure that things are happening in a fair and ethical way in order to have genuinely voluntary exchanges.
No, the devil's in the details. Fair doesn't mean anything. Fair is fake. When you're looking at a trade where you are exchanging goods and services, it's different from a sexual ethic. It's like sex is a categorically different issue. Sex is a moral issue, not an economic issue.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm going to trade something with you, the only reason that I am doing that trade is because I believe that what you have is worth more than what I have.
Mm-hmm.
And the only reason you're doing a trade is because you believe what you have is worth more than what I have is worth more than what you have.
Mm-hmm.
And so we both have to leave the trade feeling better than we entered. Otherwise, the trade will not happen.
Okay.
Therefore, it cannot be exploitative. Because I left better off than I entered.
Interesting.
Otherwise the trade won't happen. And so when you try to say you say like, oh, like this classic people that talk about the Uber thing, where Uber used to take 20% and now they take 50%.
Mm-hmm.
Like they shifted that.
Yeah.
So then don't work for Uber. If you do not come off better than you were when you entered, if you do not believe that working for Uber will benefit you, then you won't do it. You have to believe the trade is good for you. And if the trade is good for you, then you weren't exploited.
There's a difference between good and necessary. Like sometimes
necessary is good. You have to do it. It was good.
Right. Well, but
and better than you were before.
Well, because I need certain things in order to survive that I'm not able to have if I don't.
Well, if you're talking about just survival, you can get infinite free food. You can get infinite free housing.
Right. You're not going to die.
If you're just on a survival issue, so then this idea of like, oh, well, you need it to survive and you can't be free if you can't survive doesn't apply.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about degrees of luxury.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe I just want more luxury. It's not fair. I don't have enough luxury. I'm sorry. No.
Mm-hmm.
No. Whatever you provide is what you get back. Almost exactly, actually. Like Uber loses money. Uber on net, they take a huge portion of their revenue.
Oh, yeah. Interesting.
Like they may have just recently broke even, I'm not sure, but almost all these tech companies, they do not make money. They do not work short term. They are trying to build out a long-term idea. Uber is basically an AI company. They're trying to collect a huge amount of driving results, and they're not making money yet. They're hoping to make money eventually. You look at the earnings to price ratio on like Tesla or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Tesla is like 10x the value of all these other car companies, and they don't sell that many more cars.
Yeah, that's true.
It's because of this. It's a subjective idea of investment.
So why is that? I mean, I would just think that Uber was doing quite well, right? If they take 50% of every single ride.
Yeah, they're spending an enormous amount of money on Uber, on research. They're spending an enormous amount of money on marketing. They're competing with Lyft. I mean, they have huge overhead. They're just because they don't own all these cars doesn't mean they don't have, like, they're not doing other stuff. Like they're like, it's difficult to run a company.
Oh yeah,
run a big company. I mean, gigantism. Like the reason why like the bigger you get, the harder it is to run.
Yeah.
And so like the idea, like you say, oh, they're exploiting at 50%. Were they exploiting at 20%? What about 5? What about 95? What about 6? Like there's never a principle for this. There's never because they're not optimizing for anything. They are subjectively determining, oh, I just don't like that it's 50%. Sorry, what? No. Explain to me what the number is, because you say you don't like it's 50%. And you said 20% was okay. 50 is bad. I said, no, 20 is bad. Only 10 is okay. He says, no, 10's bad. Only 5's okay. And you run it down to 0, in which case we've determined that all profit is immoral, in which case now you've hit socialism. It naturally devolves into socialism unless you determine it as subjective.
So no federal minimum wage.
Oh, absolutely not. The minimum wage is always 0. Because you could just not work. It's actually a serious problem in Seattle. I grew up in Seattle.
Interesting.
And I have friends who live in Seattle. I grew up near Seattle. I was in Bellevue, which is a sort of suburb around Seattle. But I have friends who live in Seattle who cannot, back when they were high school students, now they're older, but back when they were high school students, they could not get jobs in Seattle doing barista work, doing kitchen work, doing all this stuff, because the minimum wage was so high and they didn't have any degrees or whatever, that they are now driving out of Seattle to go get jobs in the suburbs around, because they are not just unemployed in the like transient, like looking for a job. They have become unemployable, where the minimum wage that they are legally allowed to accept is higher than the value they could possibly provide. You've priced them out of the market. Minimum wage is always 0. They just don't have jobs.
Wow. That's interesting. I think that where I find things concerning is when you have large corporations who pay their employees so low that my tax dollars need to go to fund their welfare benefits.
Well, they just shouldn't have the welfare benefits to begin with, and then they won't pay wages that low. You're just subsidizing the company.
I agree that we're subsidizing the company
with the welfare benefits,
but I'm not.
So you want to cut the benefits?
No,
then, right?
No, I'm not convinced.
We were so close.
No, I don't want to.
So close.
I don't want to cut the benefits. I want them to pay their employees more so that the benefits aren't necessary. Because I'm not convinced that they'll do it. I'm not. I don't think that there's sufficient evidence to suggest that if we get rid of welfare benefits, Amazon's going to miraculously pay their people more.
Of course they will, because the people will need more. People won't take the jobs anymore. They will literally be forced to unionize.
So are you big into unions? Do you like unions?
I love unions.
You do?
I don't believe in state protections for unions, but I love unions. Yeah, if you want to go negotiate together, we're going to both apply for a job together. No, we won't take $10. We will only work for you for $12.
So it's not a turnoff for you to see a political candidate or somebody on a union picket line, for example, like let's say a Josh Hawley.
No, I don't like Josh Hawley for a lot of other reasons, but no, I have no problem with unions. I like unions.
What don't you like about him?
About Josh Hawley?
Yeah.
Josh Hawley he's got your problem. He's a redistributionist.
I happen to really like Josh Hawley.
Exactly, right.
Or like a Tucker Carlson. I'm assuming you're not a fan.
Not a fan of Tucker Carlson for a lot of reasons. I think Tucker Carlson is, he's weird on immigration. He's weird on a lot of the cultural issues.
I thought he's been pretty good on cultural issues.
He's very defensive of a lot of these Islamic nations in ways that I don't like. I'm very hesitant of Islam. And I think he has this strange ecumenism that he only applies to Islam, and I'm very skeptical of him.
Interesting. I've heard this criticism of him. I guess I don't read it as
necessary. Did you see the Mike Huckabee debate?
I did.
Where Mike Huckabee says something about Qatar, and Carlson like jumps on it. He's like very important that we don't like other things. They have factual disagreements. They're talking about different things. It's like he's kind of debating, but Qatar.
I think Tucker's buying a house in Qatar.
Is he really?
Yeah.
So that's weird, right?
It's a little weird.
That's weird.
Yeah. I don't know why he's buying a house in Qatar. He said that he's buying. What was his reason? He just said that he liked it and he's buying a house there.
You like Qatar?
Right.
Like, I'm sorry. No one, it's a desert.
It's not, there's nothing great. There's nothing wonderful about it.
No, it's not like Dubai. Even Dubai, people like sim for Dubai. I'm like,
it's boring. And yeah,
but you're going to fucking Doha? Like, what are you doing in Qatar?
Yeah. But I mean, I think that Tucker's interesting because he articulates a lot of the things that I've been trying to get at, but I'm not sure that he backs it up on a policy front. But like he has said, that he's concerned, for example, about his 28-year-old son who's unable to buy a home, and that he looks.
It's so dumb. He's one of the richest guys. What do you mean his 28?
He also cries poverty a lot. Like a lot of people have like brought up. He's like, I don't have that kind of money. It's like he's very.
What is that?
Yeah, right. What are you talking about? Me? No, on his John Deere and stuff.
It's like, I'm sorry, no. You were the biggest talk show host on the biggest show on Fox, and now you run like a top 3 biggest podcast in the world. Like, I'm sorry, you are extremely wealthy.
He's doing very well,
and I have no problem with that. I like rich people.
Me too.
I have no objection that you are a little bit from the wealth.
No, I like rich people. I like rich people. I'm not like you're never gonna see me donning a no billionaires allowed.
Eat the rich or something.
Eat the rich. Absolutely not. I don't believe in that at all. I want people to have their private planes. I want people to have their Rolls Royces and their Lamborghinis. I believe in income inequality. I'm not trying to ameliorate all inequality at all, but I also think that if we want to keep these gears of capitalism grinding, there needs to be a level of redistribution, because without it, you're just going to see more and more and more of total wealth and prosperity amassed in the hands of fewer and fewer and fewer people, which is
what if we just got rid of the cronyism? That stops. Like, you admit the problems in housing or zoning. Right. Get rid of the zoning problem. Look at Austin. Austin didn't mass redistribute. Austin just got rid of the zoning problems, and housing prices went down.
Like, to me, I look at, let's say, there's a $700 billion delta between taxes owed and taxes collected. One of the first things I would do before I even touch the tax code would be fund the IRS and try to close that delta. And I would fund it with a stipulation
with the IRS.
I think if you took a machete to the tax code and you got rid of all of these loopholes and you put some stipulations around, we're not going to frivolously audit small business owners who make under a certain amount. We're going to target ultra high net worth individuals who are offshoring their wealth and are taking advantage of loopholes that are contributing to the $700 billion tax.
If you actually try to close this, they'll all just leave. I mean, part of the problem, if you seized the entire net worth of all billionaires in America, you'd get, like, first of all, you would crash the value of the stock to zero.
Yeah, and I wouldn't want to do that.
But even if you somehow could, you're going to get like $9 trillion. You're going to fund the government for like 14 months.
Right.
Like, the delta doesn't exist in the rich. If you seize not just their income, their entire net worth, you will fund the government for a little over a year.
Yeah.
That you cannot fix that problem by taxing more.
Well, we also have to spend less.
Right. Like, almost purely you have to spend less.
Yeah. We have to majorly
That's
spend
it.
less.
You have to slash all the welfare programs. You have to cut the military to about half. You have to massively reduce all discretionary spending. You have to dismantle the welfare state. We can't afford it. Can't pay it. It doesn't happen. You could put the military to zero and we would still be running a deficit.
Right, because of the money spent on
welfare.
On welfare. It's an interesting point.
So what's our disagreement? You agree we spend too much on welfare. You agree we have to get rid of regulation on housing. Why aren't you an Austrian? Join us. Come to the dark side. We have cookies. It's so much fun. It's so much fun over here.
I've said that I would be Austrian in certain contexts, and that's one of the reasons why I was so excited to have this conversation, because I like Austrian economics a lot, and I think that
I can tell you've read him. You know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I really do like it, and I like what Javier Milei is doing in Argentina. I think it's precisely the right thing to do.
He's a hero.
Yeah, he's an absolute hero, and I think he's going to turn the country around. I mean, they did it in Chile too, right? I mean, Chile's a great example. The Chicago boys, what they did in the 70s, and it went from a socialist nightmare to
other problems with Pinochet.
Right? Yeah,
but the economics
on the economic side, it was good.
Same thing. Opus Dei with the Spanish Miracle. Franco had his issues. I'm not like defending Franco.
Right, I'm not defending everything. Yes, exactly.
But just like some of the Opus Dei stuff that happened over in Spain, the Chicago boys that happened under Pinochet, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. I'm a big fan of all of it. I think that the reason why I don't think it's a viable system right now is just, I keep going back to this huge problem, which is because of cronyism. I agree.
So get rid of the cronyism.
Get rid of the cronyism, yes.
You admit the problem is because of the state, and your solution is more state.
Well, my solution is, I think that because we are now in such a place of such immense wealth and prosperity, we are in a position where we are able to raise the bar on the baseline level of happiness. So there's no reason why everybody shouldn't have healthcare. Like, I'm not necessarily for single payer.
How much healthcare?
What do you mean by how much healthcare? I think that people shouldn't have to walk into a hospital and go for.
There are certain cancer treatments that cost $1 million because they gear it directly to your DNA. Should we fund that?
Well,
Should everyone get $1 million cancer treatment?
it's interesting about, first of all, why is it $1 million? Second of all, experimental drugs like that, I agree, don't necessarily need to be covered under a basic healthcare plan.
Okay. So that means you have a degree.
I have a degree. Yeah.
Okay. So that means you no longer have a principle, you have a pragmatic case.
Mm-hmm.
In your pragmatic case, guess what question I'm going to ask? What are you optimizing for?
Listen, you've given me a lot to think about, because I think that it's a very strong objection to the redistributionist case, which is that
I'm
there's
just
no
going to
guiding.
run it further.
Yeah.
I'm going to, you say,
when does it stop?
I'm going to say we should fund $1 million. We should just give everyone $1 million cancer treatment. You should have everyone should have the best treatment all the time. And there should be no wait lines.
Everyone should have a Lamborghini.
Pay for more doctors. Yeah.
Right.
You say transportation's a human right. And I say, okay, how much transportation? And you say, oh, well, we should have really good busing. Everyone can get around. And I say, busing? What if the bus doesn't go to the right place? What if you have to wake up early in the morning? That's an inequality that they get to drive and you wake up in the morning. The really smart kid who's like really poor and has to take the bus has slept a half hour less. Now he gets a lower SAT score, can't go to Princeton, his whole system is destroyed, like you have the devolution. So we have to have free cars for everybody. Oh, but some cars break down faster than other cars do. So the fixing of it, you have to have free mechanics for everybody. Okay, why don't we just buy cars that don't break down as much? But now you have a social class issue of he has a poor car, he has a rich car, so you have division. Okay, free Lamborghinis for everybody. It just runs all the way up. There's no principle. If you don't have anything you're optimizing for, if you don't have I'm optimizing for this, such that this, such that that, such that this. I mean, it's your basic like stats 101. Like, what are you developing? If you don't have falsifiable claims where I am attempting to make this better and that better and this better within these rules, you have nothing. You have socialism. You have central planning hell. Always. You have Austrianism or you have central planning hell. There's nothing in between.
But there's no such thing as a well-regulated market, to you. There's no such thing as a market with safeguards that prevent dynastic wealth, that prevents...
No, because the people who are setting those policies are always going to people who you least want to be setting them. The system with health guard, with good systems, with good-hearted people who want to regulate the system, always devolves into cronyism. It's like, oh, well, if I was in charge, I'd have the good policies. Like, okay, sunshine. You're not as good as you think you are. Right. Partially because you can't, because the problem is too complicated to optimize. And so instead, you will optimize for yourself, because that's the only thing you can optimize for, because you know yourself. You don't know everybody. There's too many variables. You cannot optimize for it. And partially because even if you wanted to be doing good, you're not going to win. But absolute power corrupts absolutely. You will have crony, destruction of what we currently have, or central planning hell, or Austrianism. Those are the only three stable states. It will always devolve into one of those instantly, and it always has. Name a state that does your system.
I mean, right now?
Ever. Historical. Name a state that isn't cronyism, or socialist central planning hellscape, or free market laissez-faire Austrianism.
I mean, I would point to America 1950s post-GI Bill, where we saw a pretty substantial redistribution of wealth that built a booming middle class after it was decimated in World War II. I think that's
immediately devolved into the crony system that we have now.
That's right. It did devolve into the crony system that we have
now.
And now we got it.
Always do.
And then that was kind of my original point about the exhaustion of regimes, that I don't think that there's such thing as a regime that works in perpetuity. I think that regimes solve exhausted regimes. So I think there's a world in 50 years where I could be an Austrian, but there's also a world where I look at the problem and I'm like, we got to go back the other way. I don't believe in we slap this regime on and it works in perpetuity. I think that it's cyclical.
So
I think they get exhausted.
The benefit of the 50s was a product of redistribution?
Yeah.
Or do you think it was a product of like the invention of the washing machine, or of the fact that Europe couldn't build anything, or the fact that we basically doubled the workforce by injecting women into the field, or the fact that we had a huge uptake in patriotism, or the fact that we had an entire group of young men who were trained in obedience to then go be excellent workers, which might be exploitative.
Right.
Are any of those things, are any of the cultural impacts there?
Of course.
Or do you think the redistribution? Because the high tax rates people paid, no one paid those. The 70%, 80% income rates, no one paid them. Didn't happen. Mass loopholes.
There
And the redistribution is substantially higher now than it was then. Section 8 housing, way up now. I mean, the 50s, that's pre-Great Society. That's literally before all your redistribution programs of LBJ. That's actually much closer to my Austrian system. The devolution that happened afterward, were the things that you don't like that start happening in the 60s and 70s, that's LBJ's redistribution Great Society.
That's interesting. But what about specifically when we're looking at Woodrow Wilson, FDR, and post-World War II?
Well, with Coolidge in between. Don't forget my boy Coolidge.
Yeah, I know. You're right. You like Coolidge, don't you?
Yeah.
He wasn't bad. I don't mind him. Look, I think that those are interesting points. I think that I would still, when you look at, I mean, what do you think the Gini index it was post, and during Wilson? I mean, it was obviously, I think that. I
have no idea.
Yeah, I would be very curious.
It might have been really high. Yeah. I mean, we were looking at. I
think it'd be low.
I mean, the Rockefellers, J.P. Morgan, we were looking at all that. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
And I'm kind of not that concerned with it.
You're not that concerned about it. I know it's not something that's interesting. I guess I'm getting concerned about so much money in the hands of so few people, and when that stops,
how much is so much, and how much is so
right?
few?
I know, and that is an interesting question. I agree with you, and I think that if we were to implement these redistributionist policies, eventually they would go too far, and you would see stagflation, you would see innovation go down. But I also think that,
and you're willing to risk that, and not even willing to risk that, you're willing to guarantee that because you said eventually. So you want to guarantee stagflation?
I don't want to guarantee stagflation.
But you want a system that will guarantee stagflation.
I want to solve a problem with redistribution of wealth.
But didn't you say the solution to that problem was getting rid of NIMBYism?
Yes.
QED done.
Well, I think that I would say that there's two parts. I agree in the getting rid of cronyism, getting rid of NIMBYism, getting rid of bureaucratic hell.
And you want to get rid of bureaucratic hell with more bureaucracy?
I want to. Well, I guess.
Or you just think we could have good bureaucrats?
I did think that. I think that there's two. I think that there's.
Okay, sunshine.
Yes, I do.
Come on.
I think that there's good bureaucracy. I think that there is. I mean, this is. I forgot. Somebody did. There was research done on this again in the organizational world, that there was like productive bureaucracy and coercive bureaucracy, and that
there's a lot of productive bureaucracy.
And that there is Yes, I agree. There's productive bureaucracy
when they're small,
and there's helpful bureaucracy. And I was
helpful is a different question.
And I guess I would say that I would make the argument that it would be a form of enabling bureaucracy to get rid of some of the wealth that's been concentrated into the hands of so few, and redistribute it back into the do you hate the let's say like a negative income tax, like a Milton Friedman style negative income tax? No good.
No.
UBI, no good.
Oh, definitely no UBI. Oh my God,
right.
No.
I agree. I agree with you on UBI. In fact, I don't.
I'm not a Chicago guy. I like the Chicago guys.
Yeah.
And trust me, if we could go from where we currently are, if we could make Milton Friedman emperor, we could make Thomas Sowell emperor. Sign me up. This sounds great.
Yes.
Chicago guys are so much closer to what I want than what we currently have. Mm-hmm. But I'm an Austrian. I am past Milton Friedman. I love Milton Friedman. He's so cool.
But you're
my favorite guys.
Yes.
Free to Choose, great book. Basic Economics, Thomas Sowell, great book. Like these are all excellent. Mm-hmm. But I'm talking Hayek.
You're talking Hayek. Yeah. So I have some policies that I wrote down because I knew I'd forget them. I want to ask you about them individually.
Excellent. Hit me with it. I'm so hyped.
So we currently have an estate tax that kicks in at $30 million.
Evil.
You want to get rid of it all.
Double taxation is disgusking.
I talked to you about the step up in basis. It sounded like that's something.
I don't like that either.
But it sounded like you were agreeing with me.
Remove that.
Yeah. Right. Remove that. Okay.
On both counts on the death.
Yeah. How about this?
I'm a family guy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe in the individual as a person. I believe in the individual as a unit of family.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I totally. Obviously, you and I are going to be in lockstep on that.
And so that's why you shouldn't tax me in a pro or negative way to transfer wealth between my family.
Mm-hmm.
When my father dies and I inherit his money, don't tax that. When my father dies and I inherit his capital gains, it's the same capital gain stock.
It's the same capital gains.
Just making either of these changes, making one but not the other, is just insane.
How about this one? Eliminate the buy, borrow, die scheme by limiting deductibility of loans backed by appreciated assets.
I haven't looked enough into the systems of like debt and how that taxes. My default is I don't like loopholes, but I also. The thing that I'm maximizing for when it comes to taxation is flatness.
Right.
I think it's disgusting that the 90% of people can vote to tax the 1% of people. I think that is an economic majority tyrannizing an economic minority.
I mean,
I think that's evil to not have a flat rate.
When you look at, nobody's taxed more harshly than the high earner W-2 employee in an inner city in a blue state, right? A doctor making $1.8 million a year in New York City is
takes home
fucked.
0.8.
Yeah, is fucked.
And it's because of the fact that you allow an economic majority to vote to strip him of his wealth. I think it is disgusting when you have racial minorities voting to strip racial minorities. I think it's disgusting when you have any kind of, if you were to like, oh, well, people with red hair, tax their money. Disgusting.
Yeah.
So people who are rich, tax their money. Disgusting. Can't do it. And so, but I'm also maximizing for balancing the budget. And so when it comes to various loopholes, if adding the loophole actually increases the revenue to the government, which a lot of them actually do, because it de-incentivizes people from making their money outdoors, or abroad. If the loophole increases the revenue of the federal government, I'm pro loophole. If it decreases it, I'm anti the loophole.
So what would be an example of a loophole that increases revenue to the federal government?
Some of the loopholes around the ability to bring money in later, that like, we're not sure if you made that here, if you made that over there, and we're kind of not going to look at it. You brought it over now. We're going to just let it go.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. Yeah, totally. I think
that loophole, the actual thing of like, if you would have the IRS like really audit them, if they were afraid that would happen, they'll never bring it over. And you'll never tax it at all.
I agree.
And so some of these loopholes, so again, I can tell you what I'm optimizing for though.
Yes.
I am optimizing for paying off, balancing the budget.
Right.
And so this loophole, I don't know how it falls on this.
Yeah, it would be bad, right? It would be, right, essentially, if I have $20 million in stocks, instead of selling that stock and having to pay a capital gains tax, I could just borrow against my asset, never pay capital gains, and take that money and go buy a bunch of shit.
And if that has that impact, I don't know what impact it has.
Yeah.
If the impact is to reduce revenue, though, then I'm probably opposed to it. But if it increases revenue, then I'm in support.
Well, yeah, of course.
Like, I'm just optimizing for revenue.
Right. All right. That makes
I just
sense.
don't have the evidence for what this one does. I'd have to look into it.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, look, we talked about the capital gains tax rates and the labor taxes. I think that we were on the same page there. You don't like my idea of lowering the estate tax exemption.
Definitely not.
You hate that. I don't think that you liked my idea of an alternative minimum tax. What was your thought on that?
Give me more details on that one.
Yeah. So essentially, the way that an alternative minimum tax would work is that you would have two options. So let's say if you make $10 million, you have your tax rate that you would pay after you have a bunch of loopholes and after you write a bunch of shit off, and you have that tax rate. And then you have the alternative minimum tax of, let's just say, 40%. You pay whichever one is higher.
Oh, no. Flat rate.
Right. So that's right. You're right. You don't agree. So your idea is, so you would really, but you also don't believe in loopholes. So you would really throw out the entire IRS playbook, and your IRS tax code.
It's an insane system.
You
have to pay this much. But we're not going to tell you how much. But if you get it wrong, we'll put you in jail. The fuck is that?
Right.
No, flat rate. Just so here's 20%. Piss off. Done.
Right. And is there a number that you haven't like that you would like the flat rate to be?
It's the Laffer curve optimization rate at first.
Yeah.
And then it's towards zero.
And then it's towards zero.
Yeah.
Right, because you're just going to slash so much spending, whether if it's military, state, cut even to like, let's say something like policing.
I basically don't believe in federal police. It should be a state issue. I mean, like, I don't believe in federal murder law. It's a state issue. I believe in the 10th Amendment. I believe the 10th Amendment should be strict. I want to repass the 10th Amendment word for word. Like, motherfuckers, read this.
Fascinating. Oh, I wanted to ask what you thought about the earned income tax credit. Is that something that you're super familiar with? The idea that essentially if you have children, so it's optimized for children, which I think that we like. If you're a single person, it's pretty low. If you have kids, you get a major tax refund.
Yeah, I think that's silly. It's a loophole.
But right, it's a loophole that doesn't optimize for what you're optimizing for.
Yeah.
You know what I really appreciate you is that you're extremely consistent.
I am.
And I really appreciate that, no matter what. And I'm much more of an outcomes guy, and I think that that's a big difference. Is that I'm just like, I'm willing.
Which outcomes?
An outcome of, does this increase aggregate happiness, makes people's life better?
Happiness makes people's life better.
Yeah.
These are not outcomes. These are subjective vibes. You're not an outcomes guy. You're a vibes guy. You have no numbers here.
Well, I know. I think that my numbers would be something along the lines of, okay, well, I think that guaranteeing
SSRI rates, because we could measure that.
Right. Well, again, look, I mean, that
But
is
then the
something
second you make that the thing you're measuring, now you incentivize doctors to stop giving them. If you measure something based on happiness, now you're going to corrupt it. You cannot measure this. This is why Austrians don't like modeling things like this. Because you can't. The second you try to model it, your model destroys it.
Yeah. I mean, we didn't get into like even like the deaths of despair and the stuff that we see in the country that I think you and I would be.
People need Jesus.
Yeah, very much in agreement on. I mean, I agree that I mean, I'm agnostic, so I don't. I
will get you there. I'll pray for you.
Right, I know. But I think that that the decline in religion is obviously a big. I'm not one of these guys that's actually thinks that religion was bad for society. Anyway, I think it's been tremendously beneficial for society, regardless of if I believe in it. I mean, we'll see when I die. I hope I see you up there.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
Blessed are those who have not seen and yet believed.
Yeah, I know. I hope if he is real, he doesn't exclude me. I guess we'll see about that too. All right. So, I mean, we actually touched on a lot of these rapid fire. Oh, here's an interesting one. If you could pick the president in 2028, who would you pick?
Thomas Massey.
Thomas Massey. Did you have somebody in mind for vice president?
Ron DeSantis. I like.
Really?
I like Rand Paul. I actually this one's gonna get me flack for it. I like Vivek Ramaswamy a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
really
really like Ramaswamy. He was my pick for 24.
ChatGPT.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
But he was my pick for 24. I like DeSantis a lot. I hate Vance. I really hate Vance.
Really?
Rubio,
I sense a little
bit
redistribution in Vance. I don't know. I feel like he could. I feel like
Vance
he could
has no opinions. Vance is a Peter Thiel cutout.
Mm-hmm.
Vance is nothing. Vance is an empty soul, empty cell without a soul. Vance's entire policy proposal was I should be president.
Yeah.
He is Republican Gavin Newsom. He has no position.
I 100% agree. He'll say whatever he needs to say in order to get himself elected. I think pretty much anybody from the Trump administration is disqualified for 2028. For me, and I think for most of the country, I can't see it. I think these people's political careers are over. Is there a country that you think that the United States should look towards right now for economic inspiration?
Can I say America 1900?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, sure. That's doable.
Parts of Argentina, El Salvador, when it comes to crime, which is hugely tied to the economy.
Really?
Oh yeah.
It's interesting that you say that. I think that it's been a little overly authoritarian in their approach. I think that there's a lot of due process violations and I would be deeply concerned about, like, you know, there are a lot of disturbing stories about women being locked up for life with a miscarriage or something like that because it was technically abortion.
I would never support any of those.
Right.
Kind of issues.
But
it
works.
It's a vibe. It's an energy. It's a lock them up. Put criminals in prison. Yes. None of this like the average rapist in America today convicted gets 10-year sentence and spends just over 5 years in prison. We used to kill rapists, and the Supreme Court said that was cruel and unusual. It's like, no, actually, it's not. It's cruel to rape people, kill rapists. Done.
You're with me there. Castrate and kill the motherfuckers. You do not support a negative income tax. You hate tariffs. When you hear the phrase well-regulated market, the first thing that comes to mind...
It's cronyism.
Cronyism.
Who decides well? Who decides regulated? Who decides market?
Should monopolies ever be broken up?
No.
Ever?
No, I hate Sherman antitrust.
Really?
Yeah.
So vertical integration, horizontal integration, buy everything.
Yeah. If you are offering me a product for a cheaper, better price, then you're not hurting me. If you're offering me a product for a worse, more expensive price, someone will offer it for the price that you
Do you think they'll eventually implode in a pure Austrian system?
Yes.
Right. So you don't believe in the too big to fail argument?
No, they should fail.
They should fail.
Yeah, I mean, gigantism almost always fails.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I mean, wow, we covered so much of this, which is really interesting.
My biggest objection to Sherman antitrust, though, is a cronyism issue. It's the fact that the fact that it's always subjective. You look at these cases; they're always subjective. They're like, oh well, you know, does Domino's have a monopoly on Domino's pizza? Well, no one's gonna sell Domino's pizza. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, or like, you know, if I sell typewriters, okay, well, is a computer a replacement for typewriters or not? Like, what is a complementary good versus a supplementary good is always subjective because value is subjective because the Austrians, you know, system of value. Mm-hmm. And so it'll always be subjective and therefore it's a cudgel. It's a, hey, Facebook, you better pull down that article or we're going to hit you with some antitrust act. Oh, the Biden laptop story? Be a shame if we were to Sherman antitrust act you. No, the state cannot have a subjective power to destroy. Mm-hmm. They cannot have that power.
Interesting. What do you think the strongest critique is of Austrian economics?
Strongest critique of Austrian economics? a huge number of Austrians struggle with family. Rothbard wants you to sell kids. Ayn Rand has no children in her books. The Austrians need you need to be. They also often have an issue with consensual sex. We talked about it a little bit. They have this idea where they're trying to apply their economic models to social issues. You need to be Christian first. I am a Christian. I am a capitalist. I'm a nationalist in that order.
Okay, that's pretty much all I have there. I mean, this was super fun.
This was awesome.
You gave me a lot to think about. I mean, look, I haven't had a lot of these ideas really interrogated in the way that you interrogate them. You gave me a lot to ponder on because I used to think a lot more like you. So I saw myself in you, and then I graduated college, and I was like, fuck, like there's so many rich motherfuckers, and this is really hard, and these homes are so expensive, and I live in New Jersey or New York, and where the median home price is so high.
Fuck the state. How dare the state do that to you?
I know.
Tear them down. Tear them down. Free market. Laissez-faire.
And who knows?
Fuck the state. Get mad. Get angry.
I might be back.
Look at what they're doing. Look at what Mikey Sherrill's doing to you. Look at what Kathy Hochul's doing to you. Look at all these blue state Democrats and your blue state elitism and say no more. Fight back. Join me in the revolution for freedom.
Do you think there's anything about the Democratic Party that's good?
Oh, yeah.
What do you like?
The Democrats, especially right now, this is crazy to say, they might literally be less corrupt. Like the Trump administration stuff is insane. And after fucking Russiagate, after Obamagate, after they impeached him over a phone call with Zelensky, like I was like, it couldn't possibly be more corrupt than this. And now Trump is like running crypto scams.
Oh my God, the enrichment. If you just take the time to look at how much money the Trump administration has made, the Trump family has made, Steve Witkoff has made. Oh my God, it actually is.
It's revolting.
It's revolting.
And so you say like, what I like with Democrats? I like that they're not Donald Trump.
Right. Yeah.
I like that they fought on the Epstein files. They only did that because they hate Donald Trump. But at least they did that. Like that was like a thing. Like Massey was one of the Republicans who was big on that. But like Ro Khanna led like the progressive really nice left. I think the Democrats do a good job of appealing to people on the things that matter. A lot of Austrians are like, oh, well, you see, when you economize for the Laffer curve and blah, blah, blah. And people are like eyes glass over, they don't care. And Mondami's like, things are not affordable and we're going to fix them. And his solution is state-funded grocery stores, which is evil and disgusting. But he's talking about the real problem. He's actually describing a problem and then not solving it. Republicans are like, do you remember about Benghazi? Remember how bad Benghazi was? People are like, no, we don't care anymore. Yeah. Like, I'm sorry, we don't care anymore.
They've stopped ever since. I mean, Trump never really, certainly Trump too never had a cohesive policy platform where they don't talk about any issues.
I have concepts of a plan for healthcare. What the fuck is that?
It's humiliating.
It's
absolutely humiliating.
The Democrats have policy proposals. They're
do.
all wrong.
Some of them. Yeah,
but
like
they have
Elizabeth
proposals.
Warren or somebody who has really
I respect Warren.
I mean, I respect the fuck out of Elizabeth Warren.
I'd love to debate Warren. I'd fuck her up.
Yeah.
But she'd be honest with us. And
I think that the work that she did with the two-income trap around 2003,
she doesn't believe any of that anymore.
I know, but that was really good stuff. That's
basically what I was talking about. The problem of like, you shouldn't have daycare. You should just not have two incomes.
Right. And I mean, look, I would love to go back to that. I mean, would you vote for a Democrat if the Republican nominee was
if they run JD Vance and there's a moderate Democrat like Joe Manchin, I will vote Democrat in 28.
Otherwise,
I will. If it's Newsom, I'll vote Vance.
Really?
Yeah.
You'll actually vote for Vance over Newsom?
Over Newsom, easy.
Wow.
Easy. But if they run a true moderate Democrat, they run someone like I said, like Joe Manchin, like the Arizona woman senator. Can't remember her name right now.
Yeah, me neither.
But if they ran someone like her, Sinema, I think.
Oh, Kristen Sinema.
Yeah,
but she's an independent now. Yeah.
But if they ran someone like, if they ran Tulsi Gabbard or Kennedy, if they took back one of those people, I vote over Vance. Easy.
I mean, I have no respect for Tulsi Gabbard. The fact that she has not resigned from the administration.
Neither has Vance. So like it's
sold. Yeah, but Tulsi Gabbard sold "No War with Iran" T-shirts. Yeah. Her whole brand was anti-interventionism, and she's the director of national intelligence. As her boss blows up elementary schools in Iran.
Bridge and power plant day.
I mean, how can she look? I used to really like Tulsi Gabbard. I fucking loved her, actually. And I'm appalled.
Well, she's a redistributionist. So
right, I know she is.
When she was picked, I was like, oh gosh, we can't have redistributionists in this administration. Turns out there were much bigger problems.
There were much bigger problems. Yeah. Interesting. I don't know what I would do.
I am almost purely vote Republican no matter who. I really hate Vance. And if the Democrats aren't going to run someone that's better than Vance, though.
But you don't have a level of outrage right now. Like, I feel so outraged about the Trump administration that I'm ready to start campaigning for the Democrats. But I'm also more aligned with them than you are.
Yeah, you're a lot closer to them.
I'm a lot closer to them.
I'm of the world where the Democrats want to destroy America now. Republicans want to give us like 3 more good years.
Right, yeah.
And I'm pretty mad that they only want to give us 3 more years, but I'm not giving up those years.
I mean, they optimize for the short term, for sure. That's why Trump wants to cut rates. There's no forethought at all into any of this stuff. It's just what's good for the economy right now. What's going to make the markets go up right now.
Tariffs. He's fucking illiterate.
Yeah.
I love Caroline Levitt. Like, Trump's always the most well-read guy in the room.
No, Trump has never read a book in his life.
Yeah. I read his book, Art of the Deal.
Did you?
It's actually pretty good. Like, he wrote it back in the 80s.
Yeah.
He wrote it. I don't know if he did or not, but
yeah.
It was pretty good.
Yeah,
I read Harris's book too, 107 Days. That book's wild. She's crazy.
She's crazy. What? I didn't read it. What about it?
Just intense narcissism. It's so insane. Everyone's at fault but her.
Everybody's at fault but
Everyone's at fault but her. And you're like, you are the most incompetent person to ever run for president ever. And somehow you're not at fault. It's crazy book.
So she's just as loony. Some people, they put so much dumb things in these books. It's like, who are your editors? Like Kristi Noem telling everybody that she shot her dog and her goats. Like, how did that pass? Nobody in your family read it and was like, hey, want to delete that chapter? Like, what the fuck is wrong with these people?
JD's book was weird too. Hillbilly
Was
Elegy.
it? I didn't read it, but I've heard actually good things about it.
The movie was good. I like the movie. The movie and the book aren't really the same. They have a different tone to them. The movie is much more just like purely family. The book is a little bit more like, these people suck.
So you read a lot, it sounds like. How long does it take you to finish a book?
So first of all, I'm almost certainly extremely dyslexic. When I say read, I mean audiobook.
Okay. So
I have an audiobook in the gym. I have an audiobook walking the class. I read an audiobook maybe every 3 to 5 days. I probably read close to 100 books a year.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Just all audio?
Audiobooks.
Really?
When I go to Bible study, the people like skip me for reading. I'm like basically illiterate. I'm like, oh, and he said unto him, like, it's bad.
How's your retention
extremely good?
Wow.
If I hear it, I remember it forever.
Yeah? Wow. That's awesome.
No, I was extremely blessed. I have an amazing memory. I'm dyslexic and I'm celiac. Those are my weaknesses. And I got a slight lisp. These are my 3 weaknesses.
Oh, fuck. You're gluten-free?
Gluten-free. I am the only Republican ever to order gluten-free avocado toast.
No, that's so...
Gluten-free avocado toast with my oat milk. I'm from Seattle. Like,
that's so woke of you.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I got woke coding left and right, up and down.
Wow. Fuck. I would never would have guessed that.
Meanwhile, I'm driving out to the woods shooting my guns, though. I got both.
Okay. So you contain multitudes. I appreciate the pink, right?
Right. You got the pink too. Yes, sir.
Pink.
Yes, sir.
I like that.
Reclaim pink. Take back masculinity.
Pink is very masculine.
Amen,
I mean, that's
brother.
what I loved about you in the Jubilee thing, is that I felt like, we really dispelled sort of like the idea of what the manosphere is. I think that people look at the manosphere and they just see these, just really malignant basement dwelling Nick Fuentes style incels. But it's not true. We're actually just happy guys who wear pink and want people to have babies and treat their wives well and go to work and go to the gym and be strong and be competent and
be a man.
Be a fucking man.
Like, I'm sorry, life's hard. Oops, you're a man. If you wanted an easy life, should have been a woman. Oops.
Yep.
I'm sorry.
On that note, we'll end on a high.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much for this.